Part 17. Restarting the Myth. Author, Fengchao Huang. Chapter 161. Presidential Suite, Bathroom. Diamond suit, diamond suit, diamond suit. Off-white tiles cover the walls, and an oval mirror hangs above the washstand. The mirror is wide and clear, and the edges of the frame are exquisitely carved with patterns. It emits a soft glow under the light, revealing elegance and romance everywhere. From the perspective of Wayne, a latecomer, the design of the bathroom combines modern and classical styles. It has neither modern simplicity nor classical elegance, and it fails to the extreme. In his era, any chain hotel would have a better bathroom decoration effect. This is the president, and diapers are not provided. The best bathroom Wayne has ever seen is in Landau Manor, which is pure classical style and extremely luxurious. Although his bathroom is not bad, it is a full 5 hairpin bends compared to Landau's, and the tail lights can't even be seen. What's his home and my home? They are all my home. I can't say that in the future. It's too polite. I have to change my words. Wayne lay in the spacious bathtub, the faucet flowing slowly, and closed his eyes with the sound of dripping water. The bathtub is large, and it is not a problem for 3 people to lie down at the same time, which guarantees the needs of high-level customers and allows the masters of the upper class to hug each other in the bathtub. On the left is the secretary, on the right is the lover, and Bao Bao and Bei Bei are waiting in line. My wife is at home. 5 minutes later, Wayne opened his eyes, glanced at the bathroom door, and shook his head in dissatisfaction. He thought that a female secretary in a maid outfit or swimsuit would come in tonight, carrying a makeup box to give the boss a bath. Overthinking, nothing happened. Although such a scene really happened, Wayne would also severely scold Mona to leave quickly and not think about the boss's beauty all day long, but in the end they still took their own baths. But the result is not important, the process is the most important. He can choose not to, and Mona is wrong not to do it. This bath is really boring. Wayne whispered, put on a bathrobe and left the bathroom, and did not forget to empty the water in the bathtub before leaving. After all, he is a pervert. What if he secretly drinks his bath water? In the living room, Mona was sitting on the sofa watching TV. Wayne called it an antique household appliance. He couldn't accept it, but everyone else found it interesting. Boss, are you okay? Mona was holding a change of clothes and hurried into the bathroom. Wayne reminded, don't be so excited. I've already drained the bath water. A string of question marks floated across Mona's forehead. Halfway through, the question marks turned into exclamation marks. She suddenly realized that there was such an operation. Why didn't she think of it? Wayne was teasing Mona seriously, laughing in his heart. Seeing the latter walk into the bathroom in annoyance, he rubbed his hands and untied his bathrobe. After taking a bath, it's time to do business. Practice. He threw away his bathrobe, changed into a set of trousers and shirt, and used his fingers as a comb to comb his back hair. There is a large canyon running east-west in Lucer City, which is 100 meters wide. It is the natural boundary of the city and a former military stronghold. At first, the castle walls that were easy to defend and difficult to attack were built relying on the natural rocks of the canyon. With the development of firearms, they were transformed into gun-port fortresses. At first glance, it looks solid and powerful. The people also firmly believe that the fortress can stop millions of troops and protect the capital from falling. In fact, it is just like that. If you really want to say that it is solid, the defense line next door is the King of Kings, and the Grand Canyon Fortress is just a little brother. Perhaps it was foreseen that an arch bridge was built in the Grand Canyon to ensure smooth marching while enjoying the natural beauty of the Grand Canyon from a high altitude. Imagine that the army marched across the bridge in a heroic manner, overlooking the lush forests below, the cheerful springs running at the bottom of the canyon, and the cool breeze blowing away the heat. How pleasant it is. These have nothing to do with Wayne. He doesn't march, he just wants to find a deserted place to set up a meditation array and interact closely with his fellow villagers. He has never dared to try the gold-level meditation array in London, and now it happens to be an opportunity. Wayne didn't bring the ancient silver coin, and Plank made a request when returning the ancient silver coin that it must not be taken out of Windsor. The specific reason was not mentioned, it should be the regulations of the Free Mage Alliance, or some restrictions were imposed on the ancient silver coin to ensure that the ancient silver coin could not leave Windsor even if it was stolen. Without the ancient silver coin, Wayne was reluctant to give up his 4 elemental rings, so in order to practice better, he set his sights on Lucerberg. The Grand Canyon is a good place for practice, and failure is okay, just treat it as an experiment. If he doesn't rob these elemental fellows, they will be plundered by Frank and Prussian magicians who cross the border illegally. In another 2 years, Lucerberg will be annexed, and Prussian magicians will use public tools for private purposes. After a thorough search and looting, this hole will definitely be abandoned. In summary, Wayne believes that he did not rob, and his starting point is to weaken Prussia's living strength, which is equivalent to international humanitarian aid. After convincing himself, Wayne immediately felt relieved, did what he said, changed his clothes and went out directly. "Boss, where are you going?" Mona poked her head out, her wet hair draped over her shoulders, and she was only wrapped in a bath towel, not caring about her spring light being exposed. She didn't care about this, but was curious about what Wayne was doing out at night. She looked suspiciously at his shirt and trousers. His hairstyle was very handsome. He didn't look like he was fighting a demon or negotiating business, but more like he was going out on a date. As far as she knew, it was Wayne's first time in Luxembourg and he didn't have any acquaintances. Analyze calmly and see through. JPG. Mona thought of the mysterious woman she met in the restaurant, asked Wayne to wait, finished her bath as quickly as possible, put up her wet long hair, put on her clothes and stood in front of Wayne. "Boss, I'm ready, let's go out together." Wayne looked at Mona speechlessly, the water stains flowed down his neck, and his shirt was soaked. "I'll give you 30 seconds to shake your hair dry." "I'll do it now." Mona closed her eyes, and a barely perceptible light rose from her body, steaming away the damp water vapor on her body. The magic power was precisely controlled, without any leakage. With Wayne's powerful perception ability, he didn't even notice a trace of magic fluctuation in front of him. "It's not magic, or..." Wayne looked at the back of Mona's hand, which should have stimulated the power of the holy mark. He said with a little sourness, "You use the power of heaven as a towel, and in front of me, you are really something." Mona lowered her head and was scolded, pretending to be very sad. "Forget it, follow me." There is no fog in Lausanne at night, nor is it as prosperous as London. Even the capital city, which integrates economy, politics, and culture and has the most influence, gives Wayne a feeling of vast land and sparse population at night. This is a small country, and there are not many major cities. Wayne's feeling is right. The country has a total population of only 300,000. The country is small and the people are even fewer. London can take out any district to carry out dimensionality reduction attack. Good thing. It is easier to do things with fewer people. Wayne took Mona away from the relatively densely populated urban area. The closer to the Grand Canyon, the fewer and darker the street lights. When entering the Grand Canyon along the steps, the only lighting is the moon in the sky. The moon is very round tonight. "Boss, what are we doing here?" Mona followed Wayne closely. She didn't want to ask too many questions, but this scene couldn't help but give rise to a little reverie. "Watch it later, and remember to remind me if someone comes." Wayne is ready to make a big deal and run away after making money. He did not answer Mona's question directly. He followed the stone steps to the uninhabited forest deep in the canyon. He placed one hand on the ground and manipulated the shrubs to leave on their own, clearing a field. Mona looked over. As Wayne's magic circle gradually became clear, she said with a strange look on her face, "Boss, this is illegal, right?" "Really? Angels practice like this?" "Are you sure it's illegal?" Wayne didn't even raise his head and asked Mona to reorganize her words. When Mona heard that it was the rules of heaven, she was fine. The laws of the world could not control angels, and it was not illegal if there was no law enforcement power. In short, the master was right. 2 minutes later, Wayne stood in the center of the magic circle. As the magic power was input, the magic circle lit up and slowly started. Rightward arrow. The magic frenzy rolled, and Wayne suddenly increased the magic power input. The four elements of earth, fire, water, and wind were attracted by the magic circle, like a black hole swallowing everything, and in the blink of an eye, the Grand Canyon became an elemental forbidden area. Such a large-scale elemental runaway event will definitely attract attention. The Book of Greed swallowed the four elements in one gulp. Wayne did not stay long. He controlled the plants to erase the traces of the spell, raised his hand and snapped his fingers, and left quickly with Mona. They did not eat much, but the experimental results were good. There was something to be gained, and they could continue in the future. The two walked along the stone steps for 300 meters. Before leaving the Grand Canyon, footsteps suddenly came from the front. So fast, the efficiency is too exaggerated. Wayne called it outrageous. Frank was efficient, Lucerberg was also efficient. You two are so awesome, why don't you put efficiency on the right path, but use it on surrender? Boss, do you want to fight? No need, they have no evidence. Wayne curled his lips and hooked his finger at Mona. The latter stupidly leaned forward, was pressed by Wayne's shoulders, and turned around and pressed on the tree next to him. Hold the tree, bend down, and lift your hips. Two figures shuttled through the dense forest, looking around, carefully investigating the suspicious person. What's going on? Why did the elemental forbidden area suddenly appear? Are there silver mages casting spells around? There is no magic fluctuation. It should be some kind of magic prop. The two wore robes, and their figures danced in the moonlight. They had the magic power to deflect light, and their true appearance was hazy and unclear. Judging from their body shapes, they were both female magicians. After a while, the shaking grass attracted their attention. Look out! X2. In the bushes that were not hidden, a man in a white shirt was fierce and seemed to be colliding with something. Because of the angle, the two did not see clearly, but it did not affect their imagination. In the middle of the night, they were a young couple and there was no one around to find excitement. The people of Lucerberg are really playing around. Too obscene, they deserve not to be blessed by the goddess. X2. Stop looking, let's go, we still have a mission. Take another look, I suspect they are the criminals. How is that possible? They are busy. Go, go, I'll let you continue to look after patrolling this area, okay? I'll come back and let you continue to watch after I come back. Don't talk nonsense, I don't mean that. I don't believe you. The slowed footsteps gradually faded away. Wayne patted his butt and told Mona to stop sticking out. It's not advisable to stay here for long, and go back to the hotel quickly. Ah. Oh. Mona followed Wayne stiffly, her eyes full of confusion. Her CPU was burned dry, and she hasn't reacted yet. On the other side, the two inspectors finished their exploration and returned to the opposite side of the Grand Canyon without finding anything. The moonlight deflected, and more than 10 figures were hiding in the shadows. The leading woman was wearing a veil. She was the one Wayne met in the hotel restaurant. She and her companion seemed to be preparing some ceremony in the canyon. Have you found anyone? No, except for a few tourists and couples, there are only patrolling police and guards. The woman was not satisfied with the answer and told everyone, this meeting is very important. Just because we are allowed to enter London does not mean that the Ministry of Magic really trusts us. The test just now should be their handiwork, warning us not to do anything superfluous. Thoughts? High Priest, I understand the truth, but why does the Ministry of Magic insist on trading in Lozelle City? Isn't Frank better? An old man asked. He did not believe the London authorities. The Ministry of Magic in Windsor is not allowed to enter Francia, and our power in Francia is too strong. Lucerne City is the best choice. This is also the value of the existence of a small country. The woman frowned, gave a reason that she didn't quite agree with, and then said, no matter what, this transaction is of great importance, and it is related to the future development of the church in Windsor, so handle it carefully. Do we still need to arrange the magic circle? They have drained the 4 elements. Deploying it with elemental gems, only if we show our strength will they know how to respect us. The woman spoke slowly and worriedly. The Ministry of Magic allows the church to develop in Windsor. The happiness comes too suddenly. I don't think this is a good thing. After all, once we enter, the life alliance in Windsor will be unbalanced and the long-term tacit understanding will be if it is broken, only outsiders will benefit. High Priest, the Windsor royal family wants to use us to split the life alliance. The alliance is not so easy to split. We have a common enemy. However, conflicts accumulate over time and sooner or later they will break out. The woman sighed. Windsor was not friendly to several churches. No matter how good the promise was, it was nothing more than a piece of bait. She did not advocate large-scale development in Windsor. However, the headquarters had already decided and could only execute the order. She had low expectations. As the High Priest of the Windsor district appointed by the Moonlight Church headquarters, she only wanted to be steady, instead of making great progress and being used by the royal family as a weapon. Somehow, she had a premonition that with Windsor's strong desire for control, this meeting and transaction would cause trouble. The next day, the 28th. The second day after Wayne arrived in Lozelle, after washing up in high spirits, he saw Mona in a daze on the sofa. Wake up, don't sleep, the sun is shining on your butt. Wayne pointed out the window. It was a cloudy sky with dense gray clouds and only a few faint rays of light occasionally. Ah, master, you're awake. Mona stood up, her mind still a little confused, but she immediately stopped feeling sleepy when she heard but. In your state, could it be that you didn't sleep a wink last night? Wayne patted Mona on the shoulder. When you are an undercover agent, there will inevitably be physical contact. You have adapted well before. Why were you so scared last night? Mona smiled coquettishly, thought of something, and asked, Master, boss, when you were an undercover agent, did you have close contact with other women? That's not true. You're the first. Mona breathed a sigh of relief and was about to ask something more when she saw Wayne waving his hand and walking towards the door. I have to visit the bidding fair in the morning, meet with several partners in the afternoon, and have the Pope's envoy in the evening. I'm very busy today, so don't let anything slip. He glanced at Mona and said, be in a better state. I'll reward you when the job is done. Can you tell me what the reward is? You'll know when the time comes that it's the one you like best. The two left the suite and met Nicholas and his entourage in the lobby on the first floor. The latter saw that the new boss was full of energy and the female secretary was somewhat sluggish, and he immediately cast an admiring look. People who have been there know how difficult it is. Wayne suspected that Nicholas had misunderstood something. After thinking about it, there was no need to explain to the people below. He held his chest and raised his head as if nothing had happened. Mr. Wayne, our partners have arranged for us some friendly businessmen this afternoon, including Boswell Mining Company. Nicholas took the schedule and said as he walked, Boswell Mining attaches great importance to this bidding meeting. I met with the Lucerberg authorities and the Grand Duke of Charlotte in advance. I suspect they paid bribes. Bribery is not important. It is a standard business process. The key point is that Boswell Mining has great advantages. Landau Group's partners in Frank hope to promote several alliances and drive Prussia out of the tender with absolute advantage. Who did the Boswell family send? Wayne asked. Owen Boswell, the next generation of the family. A human-like face flashed before Wayne's eyes. Because of Austin's design, he had a bad impression of this passerby. Mr. Wayne. As a gift in my name, send Mr. Owen a cement bucket. Restarting the Myth. Author, Fengchao Huang. Chapter 162. At the bidding meeting, Wayne's professional team met with his partner Murphy Mining, and they suppressed the 30th person in a grand manner. There was a tendering staff member from Albert Steel Company at the venue. The person in charge was dressed in an old-fashioned way and looked difficult to communicate with. He had a cold face throughout the whole process while being greeted with many pleasantries. Albeit Steel Company is the largest steel company in Lucerberg. It is supported by the state and is not ordinary private capital. In other words, corporate decisions are largely influenced by politics. Choosing Frank or Prussia is the biggest problem facing Lucerberg. On a larger scale, this tender represents the position of a small country, and it is not neutral if it wants to be neutral. Success is made of steel, failure is made of steel. If Lucerberg only had amazing iron ore reserves, it would not matter. However, the previous leaders were quite far-sighted and did not export resources to the comprador countries. Instead, they chose to use the iron ore for their own use, making Lucerberg a developed industrial country. This is very embarrassing. Lucerberg is just that big. Its excess steel production capacity must be exported. Its economy relies heavily on Francia and Prussia. The railway connects the two countries across the border. Neither side can afford to offend it. It has always regarded itself as a neutral country. If she had to take sides, it would be easier to kill her. Murphy Mining's hot-faced but cold approach didn't get a smile from the person in charge, but another group got it, Saar Mining from Prussia. Nicholas shook his head repeatedly. The difference in treatment was obvious. If the predictions were correct, the bidding meeting had already concluded. Wayne also frowned and led the team away from the scene. In the car, Nicholas sat in the passenger seat and talked about the possibility of a comeback. Although it was not high, it was not without any chance of winning. As long as several companies unite to put pressure on the Lucerberg authorities in the name of Frank, they can finally win at a low price. This afternoon's meeting is to finalize the cooperation plan. It's difficult. If it were me, I would choose Prussia. Wayne is not very optimistic. Prussia is too strong. It can advance, attack or retreat. Its powerful military is unmatched. On the contrary, Frank is certainly powerful and has always enjoyed the reputation of being the world's best army, but that is all in the past. In recent years, it has stayed at home and concentrated on building armor and defense lines, and its grand strategy has been focused on defense. While being arrogant, he was building blockhouses. It was clear who was strong and who was weak. The neutral countries knew how to choose. Lucerberg was afraid of the Franks and even more afraid of Prussia. Whichever was the lesser of the two, it was natural to fall in favor of Prussia. As for wanting both, it's impossible. You don't have the ability to know it. Seeing that Wayne was worried, Mona blinked and raised her hand to put on the back of his hand. Wayne took out his hand and pressed the back of her hand. He had no other intention and was purely motivated by the desire to win. Nicholas once again mentioned the meeting in the afternoon and tactfully advised Wayne to be patient for now. Although victory cannot solve all problems, it can cover them up. Cooperation with Boswell Mining will be beneficial to everyone. Wayne was a little moved. He didn't want to lose. After all, it was his first mission after becoming the heir. Failure would definitely lead to a lesson from Laodin. It's called a lesson, but it's actually waiting for an opportunity to retaliate. He could imagine that face and the other person's bragging about what I was like back then. But with Boswell mining, it's not fun to win. Damn Lao Deng, he must have done it on purpose. Wayne looked at Nicholas. I'm a little tired. You will attend the afternoon meeting on my behalf. If we can talk, we can talk. If we can't agree, we can push him back. It's okay to be modest, because modesty costs no money, but it is impossible to give away profits. The pressure is on Nicholas. How can we negotiate cooperation without giving up benefits? Isn't this making things difficult for him? Nicholas comforted himself that this was a test given to him by the new boss. As long as he could pass the test, he would become an irreplaceable figure in the new boss's mind, and he would also have a place in London's business world in the future. After taking a bite of the cake he drew for himself, Nicholas was full of energy. At 3 o'clock in the afternoon, the cooperation meeting was held. Young Master Owen, the heir to the Boswell family, entered the scene feeling refreshed. The mining company he represented also received a smile from the person in charge. Knowing that Wayne's side had hit a wall, he wanted to comfort his good friend in person. No one was seen. Nicholas is a human being, but he is not in Owen's eyes. Seeing that Wayne only sent one of his younger brothers to come forward, the smile on his face gradually disappeared. The heir of the Landau family is nothing more than that. Owen was angry at Wayne's contempt, but also happy about Wayne's ineffectiveness. He had a premonition that the Landau family would be in decline, the business would be taken over by the Boswell family, and he would become the mayor of London Financial City. Le.jpg. Owen ignored Nicholas. What level do you sit at the same table with me and let your master come over and talk? Forget it, if you don't come, your master will automatically withdraw from today's meeting. Owen was very embarrassed and drove Nicholas away, and kicked Murphy Mining out of the game, waiting for the dog to bite the dog. We all saw it, it had nothing to do with him, it was Wayne's own fault. Owen was looking forward to it. Rather than dog eating dog, he wanted to see Wayne return to London in despair and Austin furious. That's the real dog biting dog, the old dog biting the puppy, the picture must be beautiful. Nicholas was kicked out of the venue and was also very angry. He returned to the hotel to report the situation to Wayne. He did not dare to express his resentment and only said that he was incompetent. It has nothing to do with you. He originally wanted to do this. I just gave him an excuse to have an attack. Wayne said to Nicholas, you did a good job, I am very satisfied. Then do we still want to participate in the next 3 rounds of quotations? Murphy Mining is ready to give up, Nicholas asked. Do the whole show and complete the process. I see. Nicholas left with mixed feelings. He was happy that his new boss recognized him, but he was worried that the recognition was based on the result of failure. His performance during this trip was not perfect. He envied Mona even more. It was good to have a promotion device. She was a confidant during the day and a confidant at night. Mona closed the door, bent down and whispered in Wayne's ear, Boss, do you want me to show that guy named Owen a little color? Wayne looked up and saw the color in Mona's collar, and said angrily, you've been a bit angry recently. I remember you weren't like this before. You are my master, and it is my responsibility to protect your life and dignity. Sensing Wayne's eyes, Mona blushed slightly and kept her bent posture. Next time, remember to change the owner to the boss. Wayne warned and glanced again, don't use violence to resolve business matters. In the final analysis, the Boswell family is also one of the tulips. I still have this courage. Anyone else would definitely question it at this time, but Mona wouldn't. She really thought so. After being at the scene several times in a row, she believed in her eyes that the master possessed all the virtues she could imagine. Sometimes, even when it was not obvious, it was out of necessity, and there must be a deep meaning behind it. For example, the sneak peek now, the master must have seen through her dirty thoughts and chose to wrong herself because he took care of her face. As a clergyman, she was guilty. But the archbishop said that the other party was an angel, clergymen longed to enter heaven, angels were the passage to ascend, and given the golden rule contract, it was normal for her to have such thoughts. Not guilty. Mona, don't you feel tired from bending over all the time? Not sour. Then bend over. Wayne lamented that the secretary was too sensible. He would tear off the angel's halo tonight. Then it would be difficult to look at it again, so he took a few more glances. Night, rain. A high-end black car parked in front of the hotel. Mona held an umbrella for Wayne and sat in the back seat with him. The driver looked in the rearview mirror, silver light flashing in his eyes. Mona narrowed her eyes slightly, and holy golden light bloomed in her eyes. Confirmed eyes, one of my own. The driver started the car and drove towards Notre Dame Cathedral. This cathedral was built during the Renaissance. It was not originally a church but was used as a college for the Curia. The interior is splendid and decorated with precious alabaster statues. The exaggerated and excessive decoration is complicated and luxurious, with many curves and dazzling. It is a standard Baroque style. In the past few years, it was expanded and turned into a cathedral. Several spires were added. Hey, it became Gothic. The black car stopped at the cathedral. Mona got out of the car and held an umbrella, with half of her body exposed outside the umbrella to ensure that no water would get on the owner's body. Look at what you did, your stockings are wet. Wayne grabbed the umbrella, stretched out his hand to hold Mona in his arms, and the two of them walked towards the cathedral holding an umbrella together. Old boss, this is a sacred cathedral, this is not good. Mona's heartbeat quickened. She liked it but rejected it. She felt aggrieved and said anxiously, there are many people and I will be seen. Can we do this again when we go back to the hotel? All you want is to be seen. Passers-by saw clearly that the angel was teasing the nun, and quickly stood up to question it. Wayne ignored Mona's grievance and slapped her down. The latter immediately stopped struggling, raised his chest and looked around, waiting for an upright person to stand up and criticize him. Not really. The cathedral was cleared tonight, and all the clergy who were eligible to enter were dressed in white robes, with hoods covering their faces, holding white candles in their hands, as motionless as statues. These people are all from the papal state, and there is no local clergy. Although they don't know who Wayne is, similar operations. It looks familiar, I see it every day. The second floor of the cathedral. The rainwater slid down the rose window, the crystal chandelier hung high, and the bookcases on all sides formed a circle, blocking the line of sight and covering the magic circle on the ground, forming a soundproof barrier. Wayne held a black umbrella in one hand and put his other hand on Mona's waist. He stroked her up and down with his nimble fingertips, feeling the delicate and gentleness through the fabric. He saw the target of his trip, the Pope's messenger. The man has blonde hair and blue eyes and is extremely handsome. His long hair flows down like a golden waterfall. It shines with a dreamy luster under the light. His face is as delicate as a statue. His eyes are bright and contain endless elegance and tenderness. Seeing Wayne arriving, he stood up and smiled slightly. Every move he made was calm and elegant, radiating dazzling light all the time, especially his smile, which was so pure and flawless that it made Wayne feel ashamed and removed his wretched hands. No, that's too decent. Wayne pressed his hand back again. Welcome, Mr. Wayne. I am Archibald, the envoy of the Papal State. I come here on behalf of the Pope to express my most sincere sincerity to you. Archibald came to Wayne and smiled. Reach out. Wayne. Wayne stretched out his hand and shook the other man's hand. The man looked so good that after he sat down, he realized that there was a female clergyman wearing a white robe standing opposite him. It's very similar to Mona's uniform. It's slim-fitting and highlights her exquisite figure, and her appearance is at the level of a beauty. It's too bad I only look at men. Wayne said it was outrageous, suspecting that he had stayed in Windsor for too long and contracted the scheming gay virus. Having said that, Archibald was so handsome that even beautiful women looked overshadowed by being with him. Archibald, may I ask how old you were when you first served in the Papal States? 12 years old, 15 years old to become the Pope's assistant. Got it? Wayne raised his hand and made a sign of the cross in front of him, looking in the direction of the cross of the cathedral. My Father in heaven, I heard the story of the Pope and the little boy again today. Can I still go to heaven? X2. Mona was stunned, and the female clergy opposite was also dumbfounded. Ha ha ha, Mr. Wayne, that's a good joke, perfect for hell. Archibald smiled brightly, not feeling offended at all, and continued on the topic. I have heard many similar jokes, but I assure you that the Pope's orientation is normal and he does not like it. Little boy. Really or not? Certainly. Archibald pointed to the female assistant beside him. The uniform on Titus was decided by the Pope. He said that this kind of uniform is more convenient for movement and can improve the winning rate, and he promoted it in the Papal State immediately. Suppress the evil tendency of liking little boys. It's not that simple, is it? Yes, it's just that he wanted to see it. The previous uniforms were too loose and blocked the nuns' figures. Sigma. Winky face. Mona and Titus were a little frustrated. As the beneficiaries of the uniforms, their movements were indeed much easier. If possible, they didn't want to hear such a ridiculous conversation. Come on, you just lied. X2. Archibald and Wayne chatted for half an hour, all about the Pope and female clergy. In the end, Wayne believed it. There was no such thing as a Pope. He was clearly a protege. Like him, he was a staunch pro-protagonist. Pity. If I were truly an angel, I would serve him without hesitation if it was in the Pope's taste. Wayne expressed regret and said to Archibald, to tell you the truth, it's all a misunderstanding. The Golden Rule Bible is wrong. I'm just an ordinary person, not a reincarnated angel. Mr. Wayne, please rest assured that this is confidential and will not be spread out, Archibald assured. Looks like I have to prove it to you. Wayne hooked his hand to let Mona come closer, raised his hand to pull her into his arms, and raised his eyebrows at Archibald. Does such an angel really exist? As far as I know, angels have no gender. I have no worldly desires. I have too many desires, especially lust. Mona lowered her head and did not dare to say a word, and Titus on the other side also lowered his head and remained silent. Archibald still looked indifferent. It's precisely because I didn't have it before, so I want to try it now. It's understandable and very reasonable. Wayne was stunned when he heard this, feeling that the other party was comparing an angel to a eunuch. But when he thought about it, it was indeed very reasonable, and he couldn't help but believe it. Seeing that this trick was useless, he patted his butt and asked Mona to stand aside and said, the Papal State must have a way to identify angels. Show it out. I'm not afraid of offending. I just want to prove that I am an ordinary person. Mr. Wayne, the Golden Rule Bible is the best proof. You have already proved it? It was an accident last time, prove it again. No need to bother. Archibald opened the Bible in front of him and took out a bunch of golden pendants. Holding it in his palm, the pendant slowly floated to Wayne. What's the meaning? After Wayne finished speaking, the pendant burst into golden light, covering both Wayne and Mona at the same time. Wayne endured the heat wave, unwilling to inject the golden light into himself, while Mona slowly spread her white wings under the golden light. His eyes turned golden, and holy marks appeared on the back of his hands. The golden light dissipated and Archibald said, this pendant is the holy spear of heaven, a gift entrusted by the Pope to you. Under the witness of the holy light, Your servant has proven your identity. The stigmata is not will lie. But I don't have a stigmata. You suppressed it, didn't you? What he suppressed was something else. Also, if I guess correctly, you have very rare hidden magic power. Archibald said with reason, according to the records of the Papal State, this is also a characteristic of the reincarnated angel. If you are unwilling to show it, the Holy Spear cannot force your stigmata to appear. According to you, I can only admit it. Wayne raised his head and sighed. Why is it so difficult to be a human being? Of course you can deny it. If you say no, then it's not. Even the Pope has no right to change your will, Archibald whispered softly. Wayne was convinced and could only remain silent. Please rest assured that the Papal State will not interfere with all your actions, but if a devil comes to the world, please don't refuse. As he said that, Archibald smiled again. He has read the report. Wayne has repeatedly appeared on the front line against the devil. He does not need to be notified by the Papal State at all. If something happens, he will do it on his own. I am here only to convey the Pope's goodwill. He cannot leave the Papal States. I regret that I cannot meet with you. I hope you can understand. Archibald glanced at Mona, smiled and handed over a jewelry box, which was delivered to Mona through the hands of Titus. Sister Mona, the Pope also learned your name. He is very grateful to you for finding Mr. Wayne. This is a small gift from the Pope personally. Archibald paused and gave him a meaningful look. He hopes you will continue to work hard to ensure that Mr. Wayne has a happy vacation in the world. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Restarting the Myth. Author, Fengchao Huang. Chapter 163. Mona took the jewelry box but did not open it immediately. As long as there were no hands on her butt, Mona's IQ was always online. She felt that there was something in Archibald's words that was so deep that she couldn't figure out the deeper meaning for a while. It is her job as a contracted slave to protect her master, and she will do her best even without the Pope's order. The Pope specifically asked the envoy to give the instructions again and again, and also sent a reward in a private name. Mona, open it and take a look. What good thing is it? Wayne probed. Mona opened the jewelry box and presented it in front of Wayne. It was a cross pendant with nothing special in appearance. Many clergy had them. Mona had one herself, which could be transformed into a tactical team uniform. The Pope's gift couldn't be that simple. Wayne glanced at Mona and told her to accept it first and then go back and study it slowly. Archibald smiled and waited for the two people to make eye contact and said, Mr. Wayne, after the Pope's gift has been delivered, my gift will come next. You have a gift too. It's natural. Archibald smiled warmly and said, after all, you are a reincarnated angel with a high status. Any envoy from the Papal State will find a way to leave a good impression on you, and I am no exception. Take a look at the art of speaking. He is so refreshing and refined when it comes to flattering him. He is handsome and speaks well. He deserves to be able to enter and leave the Pope's bedroom at such a young age. Wayne nodded repeatedly, indicating that he had been photographed, and raised his eyebrows. Archibald, I will accept your gift, but I still say the same thing, I am not an angel, everything is a misunderstanding, and the truth will be exposed in the future. Don't blame me for not making it clear in advance. I understand what you mean. No, you don't understand. Wayne sighed. Faith makes people firm, religion makes people stupid. Such a handsome and smart man, who is no worse than him, insists on believing in the Golden Rule Bible. Empiricism kills people. Having said that, Wayne also knew that if the clergy did not even believe in the Golden Rule Bible, there would be nothing in the world worthy of their trust. Therefore, his fake angel is a real angel and cannot be explained clearly. Only when all 7 reincarnated angels appear can he prove that he is a human being. Then just wait, the matter is over, we can only leave it to time. Mr. Wayne, I heard that your secular identity is a businessman. Part-time businessman, my job is a detective, personal hobby, small business, just to give back to the society, Wayne said truthfully. Mona nodded secretly on the side. Detectives are the best cover. They use investigations as a reason to fight against evil and devils. This is what she has done before. I also heard that you participated in the bidding meeting of Albeit Steel Company. Speaking of this, Archibald took the initiative to explain, please don't get me wrong, I didn't do the investigation deliberately. I really wanted to find an opportunity to please you. He continued, as far as I know, your business negotiations are not going well and Albeit Steel is not inclined to cooperate with you. That's right, I'm ready to give up. You are so kind. With your status, you could have forced Albeit Steel Company to finalize the contract and directly determine the final ownership, but you did not do this and chose to treat everyone equally, Archibald decided repeatedly. Mona nodded and said something. She was just a passerby, but the master had such a good temper. This is not okay, and it is easy to suffer disadvantages in society. Mr. Wayne, please allow me to stop this. Archibald smiled sincerely and said, I will arrange for people from the Holy See to contact the Archduke Charlotte and the Prime Minister of the Cabinet. As long as they nod, Albeit Steel Company will definitely choose you as a new partner. Lucerberg implements a constitutional monarchy. The current Grand Duchess Charlotte is the head of state and commander-in-chief of the armed forces. She has legislative and executive powers and has the power to dissolve parliament. Different from other offline monarchies, the Grand Duke of Lucerberg has very great power and has the ability to influence the country. Wayne frowned, to be honest, I don't care whether we can achieve cooperation. Success is good, but failure doesn't matter. There is no need to use the power of the Holy See to oppress an already difficult small country. He didn't lie about the cooperation. There was a four-nation summit in September. You can think of what will happen in the next few years with your toes. World War. Once war breaks out, Lucerberg will surrender at the speed of light, and Prussia will also have a passionate military parade in front of the Grand Duke's palace. So what happens if the business is negotiated? If it is not taken over by Prussia, it may not even be able to recover the cost. In addition, he is very resistant to introducing the supernatural into reality. If possible, he hopes that the two worlds will never overlap. In this regard, Windsor has done a good job, at least on the surface. Mr. Wayne, you have misunderstood me. The Holy See will not oppress any country. Times have changed, and we do not have the ability to do so. Archibald smiled slightly, it just so happens that Lucerberg is a very religious country. About 99% of its citizens believe in Heavenly Father. Wayne. Not 100%, it's too rigorous. Why don't you just say that this is the back garden of the Holy See and that's it? Also, this guy pretends to be pretty good, a bit elegant, don't pretend to be in front of me in the future. Knowing that Archibald had the ability to handle everything, Wayne no longer refused and made only one request, don't get me involved with the Holy See because of this matter. My current identity is the pastor of the Natural Church. Suddenly, the Holy See has such a high status that it will be very troublesome for me to do things. I see. Archibald put away his smile and nodded. The business that everyone wanted to grab was settled in a few words. Afterwards, the two discussed the Pope's hobbies for more than an hour. Although Wayne did not see the Pope himself, he had an intuitive and three-dimensional understanding of him. A nun in uniform passed by the papal palace, and the Pope cast a critical gaze on her. He did not look away until the nun's back disappeared. It can be summed up in 3 words, LSP. At 10 o'clock in the evening, Wayne ended the chat without having enough to say. He waved his hand and held the holy spear pendant suspended in mid-air. Archibald, I look forward to meeting you next time, well, if there is a next time. Mr. Wayne, I'm looking forward to it too. The two of them said goodbye to each other. Wayne raised his hand to hold Mona's slender waist, his fingertips slipped, and his big hand wrapped around Huan Yuan, trying to prove something in this way. It had the opposite effect. My hands are itchy just looking at it. Archibald waved to the side. Titus, come here and learn how to be a servant. Why are you so stupid? The female monk squirmed forward and stood beside Archibald. Her buttocks were lost, her face turned red, and she whispered, Master, stop touching, this is the Cathedral of Our Lady, let's pray together. What does it have to do with me? It's not my Holy Mother. Archibald looked at the nun beside him with a smile, and whispered in her ear, Titus, you like what I do, right? No, no, impossible. Titus blushed and shook his head desperately, and took the initiative to change the subject. Master, why do you want to take on this mission? I thought you would identify yourself to Mr. Wayne. It's not necessary. He has no memory, and neither do I. We are strangers, so why pretend to be familiar with him? Archibald didn't know what he thought of, so he laughed out loud. The Pope assigned a task to Sister Mona, and he was not at ease. Let me guess, did the Pope also assign a task to you? Titus' ears turned red. He shook his head first, and then nodded, maybe, yes. I don't quite understand this detailed description. What is the task? How should I cooperate with you? Are there any teaching materials? The nun said nothing and smoked. The black limousine returns to the hotel. Wayne was sitting on the sofa, playing with the holy spear pendant, a very advanced magic prop, engraved with the holy word of the Golden Rule. It was reviewed by the Book of Greed and found to be of extremely high quality. Wayne divided the magic props into several levels. Not to mention the props made by magicians, mushrooms and sunflowers all belong to this level. Next up are the sun gem, the moonlight dagger, and the dark ring, which is slightly stronger and one level higher. The highest one is undoubtedly the shadow nightmare, which has its own transformation effect. The gold content of the God's chosen knight has never depreciated, and the holy spear of heaven cannot be compared with it. Although the holy spear cannot be transformed, it does have its merits. Wayne can carve his thoughts into it and he can control the size as he pleases. This is a knight's spear, with a half-length of more than 2 meters and a full length of more than 5 meters. As the user's magic power is injected into it, its size can continue to increase. The holy spear is bladeless, and its main attack method is sprinting, which places extremely high demands on its users. Wayne played with it for a while, without hanging it around his neck. A gap opened on his chest, and several tentacles stretched out and swept away the holy spear pendant. In a sense, this is also considered portable space. Mona was still studying the Pope's gift. After a while, she said to Wayne in confusion, Boss, this cross necklace can also help me transform. The grade is better than before, but it must have 2 owners, and I am the only one. The human mind cannot be opened, and it should be specially built for the servants of angels. With that said, Mona unbuttoned her collar and took out the original necklace from the warehouse. Wayne, 1. I feel wrong to you. Although it clearly represents light, it has always been shrouded in great evil. Bring it to me and see. Why are you unbuttoning, I mean the necklace, day by day? Can your thoughts be as pure as mine? Wayne took the 2 necklaces and compared them. The older one was slightly warmer, while the new version had no difference in style. As Mona said, it takes 2 minds to open it. He tried it, but failed to carve his own thoughts the first time. The second time the Golden Rule and the Holy Light opened the way, he proved himself again and successfully left a mark. It's strange. My authority over the necklace is higher than yours, but it doesn't serve me and can't let me dress up. Halfway through Wayne's words, he realized that it was right. The white nun's combat uniform looked great on Mona. The front and back were bulging to show her long legs. It was used to promote her faith. Leek rushed over waving the banknotes. There's no need to wear it on him, it's too eye-catching. He handed the pendant to Mona and asked her to dress up and see how good it was. The moment Mona took the pendant, Wayne let out a light sigh, and for a moment, his face became terrifyingly solemn. So that's the case, no wonder it takes two thoughts, one up and one down, the Pope. He is such a genius. Boss, is there anything wrong? I have no idea yet. You change first and I'll see, Wayne said seriously. Mona didn't understand why. She hung the new cross pendant around her neck. Before she could recite the spell, she changed her mind and changed her clothes in an instant. She looked at the white uniform on her body with surprise. It not only saved the pre-shake time, but also suppressed the magic fluctuations, greatly enhancing the concealment effect. Not only that, the golden cross pattern painted on the uniform was also more brilliant than the original one. The holy power was surging, and the strong amplification was visible to the naked eye, which strengthened the holy light belief in her body to a higher level. Boss, this equipment is very powerful. Mona was overjoyed. In the normal state, she was amplified to an incredible degree. If she borrowed the Master's golden rule through the stigmata, the double amplification would further increase her power. With this power, she didn't have to worry about being thrown away by the Master, and could always stay by his side to serve him. Innocent, this is just the beginning. Its power is more than that. It is far beyond your imagination. It is so strong. It is so strong that it can deceive me 9 times in one night. Wayne crossed his hands and placed his chin, with an ambiguous light flashing in his narrowed eyes. Mona, my mind can control the combat suit on you. Is there such a thing? Mona was surprised. Is it a means to restrict servants and protect you, the Master, from harm? If so, Mona felt that this design was unnecessary. The Golden Rule contract was the best restriction. She would not and could not disobey Wayne's orders. No, it's more terrible, it's hard to explain. I'll try and you'll know. Wayne didn't waste any more words, and was a little anxious. He directly shaped the combat suit through his mind. A flash of white light, the white uniform dissipated, and was replaced by a white bikini swimsuit. Mona was stunned on the spot, her face getting redder and redder, squatting on the ground with her hands on her chest, and her words were confused. The general meaning was that this equipment was broken. Don't be silly, it won't break even if you are pregnant. Stand up, this equipment is a bit strange. To ensure your safety, I must see it clearly. I'm talking to you. Take your hands away and don't block my research. Kakik. Nothing to worry about. This is a serious research, part of science. Don't always have wild thoughts. Mona didn't believe it. The research might be serious, but the clothes she was wearing were not serious at all. There was so little fabric, what was the difference between being naked? At the moment of shame and annoyance, countless wild thoughts flashed in her mind, and one of the voices became louder and louder. She was the servant of the angel, and she would do her best to satisfy whatever the angel liked. Besides, she had always had impure thoughts about her master. She would have physical contact when she had the opportunity, and would create opportunities when she didn't have the opportunity. Her modesty made her cautious. She didn't dare to make big moves before, but now she had an excuse, so why not? This voice was so loud, and every word pierced Mona's heart. She resisted the shame and slowly put down her fists with both hands. A white light flashed, and the original white combat uniform returned. Then Mona changed into a bunny girl swimsuit and was given 2 white bunny ears. What a powerful magic prop, you can change anything you want. However, why are they all white? Is it the last stubbornness of the church? And the golden cross pattern, no matter how it changes, it is always there. What is the deep meaning? A cross with a white background and gold pattern. Angel trap? Don't say it, it is quite dazzling. Wayne raised his eyebrows, looking through the surface to the essence. It is confirmed that the Heavenly Father Church is a pimp. The Pope did not give Mona a gift, but clearly gave him two gifts. What benefits does pimping bring to the Church? Reincarnated angels do not have their own blood. If someone dies, the child is also human blood, and the potential will not. It's hard to say, thinking can change everything. Even if it is human blood, the potential of children conceived by angels is not comparable to that of ordinary people. In addition, the children of angels can go to heaven with a letter of introduction to seek partners, and they may be able to go through the back door. After a rough review, Wayne barely guessed the Pope's intention. The routine was okay, but angels should not be interested in women/men. Can this arrangement take hostages? Why think so much? What does it have to do with me? I'm just taking a look. Wayne continued to control his mind, trying school uniforms, nurse uniforms, police uniforms, stewardess uniforms, Victoria's Secret, search officers, knights, etc. one by one, and the cross-dressing route became more and more outrageous. When Mona was almost broken, he couldn't help but be eager to try. The power of death was introduced into his body, and Wayne's mind was clear in an instant. His mind led Mona's clothes back to the original. That's it for tonight. I'm fine. Mona looked confused. It's over now. Has it started? So fast. Continue tomorrow night. This equipment is great. It inspires a lot of creative inspiration for me. Wayne rubbed his hands. With this equipment, his inspiration will never run out, and he will definitely be able to design new hits. I can make money again. Restarting the Myth. Author, Fengchao Huang. Chapter 164. 2. Wayne took Mona to a castle restaurant on the edge of the Grand Canyon to enjoy local delicacies of Lucerberg. Needless to say, Franconian cuisine does have its merits. The special delicacies of Lucerberg are also worth trying, especially the handmade salty cheese, which is delicious. The special plum wine is appetizing and is an excellent drink to accompany the meal. Wayne was very satisfied with the plum wine. He heard that a glass of it before going to bed had a refreshing effect and could help with beauty and anti-aging. He planned to bring some to his friends on his return trip. Wayne's trip had two purposes. One was to bid for business and the other was to meet with the Pope's envoy to resolve misunderstandings. The former is extremely difficult, the latter is a piece of cake. As a result, the misunderstanding deepened and the business was successfully negotiated. Wayne didn't know how to evaluate it. He could only say that everything is unpredictable and reality is always more difficult to grasp than imagined. The goal of this trip is over, and the next step is to enjoy life, eat and drink, wait for the bidding meeting to end, and return to Windsorandom. Next door is Frank, with better scenery and better food, but Wayne follows the instructions of the Headless Horseman and will never set foot there. Wayne felt that his little life was very comfortable, but Nicholas didn't think so. He ignored the food and talked about the first round of bidding this afternoon with a stack of documents. Nicholas was in a panic. The Prussian soldiers had strong horses and Frank had strong financial resources. The outcome was 50-50. He kicked out the other contestants before the bidding started and entered the second choice stage. The Boswell family relied on their resource advantages to successfully break into the Frankish side, and several powerful companies joined forces to not be weaker than Prussia. The Landau family was in dire straits. They were kicked out by Owen and couldn't even drink soup. Now they were fighting alone, which made their partner Murphy Mining very dissatisfied. Nicholas has no say in Murphy Mining. He has no status and insufficient qualifications. He hopes that Wayne will come forward to appease him. In any case, he is the new boss. If you don't give him face, you won't give the Landau family face. There's nothing to see, just 3 rounds of normal quotes. Wayne picked up the wine glass and shook it. I still say what I said, don't give away profits when quoting. Expensive may not necessarily be good, but cheap is definitely not good. Albert Steel Company will see our sincerity. But we have neither the resources nor the price, so we are not very sincere. We have people. Wayne smiled slightly. It doesn't matter, just do as I say. I'm confident that it will pass the first 3 rounds. On the day of the final quotation, there will be many people who take the initiative to seek cooperation, and the resources and prices will be available. Will it be that easy? Nicholas wanted to remind Wayne that with their strength they would not be able to survive the final quotation stage, and messing around would only be seen as disrupting the market order. Not only will you not make any money, your reputation will be damaged. By the way, when other people come to seek cooperation, keep their prices low. We will make the majority of the profit in the first 2 years of the contract, and the profits in the following years will belong to them, Wayne reminded. This business can only be profitable in the first 2 years, after that. Can't say it's a loss, after all it's a war, who would have thought? I see. Nicholas smiled bitterly, looked at the boss who looked like a young man, and then looked at the female secretary who looked increasingly depressed, and felt infinite sorrow in his heart. Boss, just because you can win consecutive battles in bed doesn't mean you can kill everyone in the mall. The secret here is very deep. Take my advice, it's not too late to apologize to the Boswell family, otherwise you will return to London with nothing accomplished, and the big boss will most likely choose a new heir. Did you know that the big boss also has a daughter? Your sister. A son-in-law can also become an heir. Nicholas felt deeply that his future was bleak, so he worked hard to go to the bidding meeting. He tried hard, but the new boss couldn't help him. He refused to participate in the bidding meeting and his partners were missing. Day by day, he found himself working hard on the female secretary. Boss, won't you tell him? Mona looked at Nicholas' bleak back, picked up a napkin to cover the slightly raised corners of his mouth. It was a bit bad, but it was more real this way, and she liked it very much. It's not necessary. The more he knows, the more curious he will be. I'm the boss, so I don't have to explain everything to him. Speaking of this, Wayne looked at Mona. You don't have to work in the detective agency anymore. I need a secretary. Documents that need to be signed can be sent directly to the study at home. Fula will tell you which study. Mona was excited and nodded repeatedly like a chicken pecking at rice. She finally had a suitable reason to enter Wayne House. By the way, remember to come here while eating, put on sexy makeup, and look at me with a more eager look. Wayne gave Mona a new task and promised to settle rewards for her every once in a while. Speaking of rewards, Mona immediately became energetic and reminded, Boss, you promised me at noon yesterday that as long as I perform well and meet the envoy, I will be rewarded that night, but there was no reward last night. Why not? Didn't I leave you hanging there? Mona's eyes widened. This was not a reward, it was clearly a punishment. Dislike. Well, if it's a punitive reward, then she doesn't hate it? On-site bidding meeting. The paralyzed person in charge of the Albert Steel Company received the quotations and contracts one by one. He smiled at the Prussian Mining Company and the Boswell family's mining company respectively. This is a signal. The corner of Owen's mouth curled up, and he couldn't help but cross his legs, high-fiving several partners one by one, and discussing where to have dinner tonight. Open a few bottles of champagne by the way. While chatting, he paid attention to the seat of the Landau family, or more precisely, the seat of Frank Murphy Mining. He did not see Wayne, who looked depressed as if his father had died, but only saw the complaining head of Murphy Mining and Nicholas, who kept his head down the whole time. Owen felt deeply sorry. He prepared a comforting hug for Wayne. He did not come, so he could only hug his female secretary after the dinner tonight. LE.jpg. At this time, it was Murphy Mining's turn to hand in the quotation contract. The head of the company had already given up. Because of the various operations of the Playboy, they were destined to be eliminated in the first round. Coming to the bidding site was to give the organizer a face. Without Albert Steel Company, there are other steel companies in Lucerberg. If they can't make a lot of money, they can still make a little money to support their livelihood. After returning, they will cancel the status of Landau family partners, withdraw their shares, go wherever they want, and never cooperate again. Nicholas suffered the cold eyes of the partners, and came forward with the quotation contract and placed it in front of the organizer. "You must be Mr. Nicholas, it's an honor to meet you. This is my business card. Can I buy you a drink tonight?" The head of Albert Steel handed over his business card, and in a second his face changed and he smiled very brightly. "You may not know, we Lucer people like to talk business while eating." XN. Below, everyone was confused. What business to talk about? Didn't the first round of bids just start? Also, why do you say this in front of them? If you want to lower the price, just say it directly, there is no need to play tricks. Owen's heart skipped a beat, and he turned around to discuss with several partners. Lucer was not moral and found a cannon fodder to lower the price. The second round of bids must be cautious. Everyone ignored Nicholas and determined that this was a price-cutting behavior. Unless there was a shady deal, Murphy Mining would not have won the bid. The head of Murphy Mining also thought so. He was excited for 2 seconds and then wilted again. The strength does not allow them to win the bid, unless the other party is crazy and chases them for money. Nicholas was slightly stunned, but soon reacted, gave his business card back, and made an appointment with the head of Albert Steel Company for dinner tonight. This was an opportunity. He believed that his eloquence could convince the other party. As long as the other party allowed him to pass the first 3 rounds of bidding, he could connect several mining companies to provide resources and strength. For this reason, Nicholas was willing to do whatever it took, even if the head looked at him with an ambiguous look. As a Windsor gentleman, Nicholas understood this look too well. When shaking hands, he touched his palms, and when laughing, he pursed his lips. As long as he didn't refuse on the spot, it was equivalent to agreeing to be pouted tonight. He thought only Windsor was like this, but it turned out that Lucerberg was also. Nicholas did not refuse, and nodded with a tragic mood. That night, the guests and hosts had a good time. Nicholas returned to the hotel without injury and described the outrageous experience to Wayne. "The people of Lucerberg are crazy and want to give us money." Wayne didn't say anything and smiled faintly. 2 days later, the second round of bidding ended. The head of Murphy Mining and Nicholas hugged each other tightly, while Owen, who was facing him, had a gloomy face. Boswell Mining Company also advanced to the third round, but he felt something was wrong. He looked at Nicholas with a strange look, impossible, unbelieving, and incomprehensible. Owen was not looking at Nicholas, a working dog, and there was nothing to care about. He was looking at Wayne, the dog's owner. The Landau family has a great influence in London, but this is Lucerberg. Their family does not even run a coal mining industry. Why should the Lucer people treat them differently? Owen couldn't figure out this problem, so he asked someone to secretly investigate Wayne's whereabouts to see if the latter had bribed the Grand Duchess. After another 2 days, the third round of bidding ended and the final bidding link was directly opened. Albert Steel Company did not let everyone wait too long, and soon announced its partners for the next 5 years. Murphy Mining. In the next 5 years, all the coal mines needed by Albert Steel Company will be provided by Murphy Mining. After the words fell, everyone was dumbfounded, only Murphy Mining cheered. Nicholas was very sure that the people of Lucerberg were crazy. Owen was going crazy too. Looking around, All the allies who were still brothers 2 days ago were now on Nicholas' side. Those who handed over business cards handed over business cards, and those who said good things said good things. This piece of cake is too big for Murphy Mining to swallow, and everyone can only make money by cooperating. The offensive and defensive situation reversed, and it was Nicholas' turn to choose an outsourcing company. In this regard, Albert Steel Company did not even look at it, probably because it was afraid of hearing it, and left directly after the result was announced. Nicholas selected partners based on the principle of equal treatment. Frank and Prussian-friendly merchants did not refuse, and they cooperated for win-win results and made money together. When finalizing the cooperation contract, he suddenly remembered what Wayne said, and froze in place, with disbelief written all over his face. The boss seemed to know that he could win. That's impossible. He only eats and plays. Nicholas shuddered. He seemed to have underestimated the boss and the boss's bloodline. That's right. His heir can't be a waste who only knows how to play with women. So, how did he win? People do not share the same joys and sorrows. Nicholas laughed constantly, but Owen only thought it was noisy. He hesitated for a long time before forcing a smile on his face. He forced himself into the crowd and handed a business card to Nicholas. Boswell Mining Company is strong and has many cooperative enterprises in Frank. This was Owen's only line. Nicholas did not need to refuse, and his former ally squeezed him out. Owen left angrily and got the investigation report that night. Wayne did not bribe the Archduchess, and they had never met at all. He ate, drank, played, and slept with the female secretary every day, making the female secretary haggard. Owen did not think he lost to Nicholas. Murphy Mining won miraculously, and it must be that Wayne used tricks. So, I am not as good as him because I am not a match for the female secretary. Boss, do you know something? In the presidential suite, Nicholas reported the good news. Seeing Wayne's face as a matter of course, he decisively confirmed what he thought in his heart. Playing with women is just an illusion. The boss hid it from everyone and took over the Albert Steel Company. The question is, how did he do it? Nicholas knew how difficult it was. The geographical location of Lucerberg determined that this bidding meeting was a political statement. Who knows, maybe it's just good luck. I've always had good luck. Wayne sat on the sofa, with his secretary Mona standing behind him. This scene reminded Nicholas of the big boss Austin. It can't be said to be exactly the same, but it can only be said to be a perfect replica. Nicholas was deeply impressed. The blood of the Landau family was really powerful. He bowed and said, "Boss, Albert Steel Company is holding a banquet at the Grand Duke's Palace tonight. I invited several friendly merchants to participate. Are you going to attend?" "No, I still have research tonight." "Bring all the team members. You have worked hard these days. Have fun." "Research," Nicholas was excited. "What research? Is it the business secrets of the Landau family? I want to see it." "Well, study her." Wayne pointed at Mona behind him, who looked normal, as if she was often studied. So this was the business secret of the Landau family, too profound, not something an ordinary person like him could learn. Nicholas was choked for a moment, and after organizing for a long time, he couldn't find the right sentence, so he said, "Boss, take care of yourself, the future of the group can't be without you." After that, he left with his hands and feet. "Ha ha ha, this guy is quite interesting." Wayne laughed out loud and raised his hand to touch his chin. He knew that it was not Nicholas who was interesting, but that everything was interesting when he stood at a high place. Capitalism is indeed worth learning, especially the depravity of people. It's only been a short time, and I'm getting carried away. Wayne shook his head and said to Mona, "I've been busy designing clothes these days, and I put down all the training courses. I just gave you a reward, but I won't give it tonight. Change to another place, and I'll set up a meditation array again. Mona nodded, looking forward to being discovered tonight, so that she can cooperate with Wayne to cover up her whereabouts. Wayne did not leave the hotel immediately. He watched antique TV for a while and went out at 10 o'clock in the evening. At the same time, more than a dozen black figures, with the cover of the night, silently surrounded the hotel. The target is in the hotel. Almost all irrelevant people have left. The remaining tourists are ordinary people and can't affect anything. Are all the things ready? Ready, the forbidden magic field, the mirror space projection barrier, they are dead, but is it necessary to use such precious things on them? Don't underestimate them. The first group of Moonlight Church members who entered London, without the mirror space barrier, it is difficult for us to take them down. I just think it's a pity. We can obviously ambush and kill the legendary wizard. Don't talk nonsense, this is the arrangement from above, just follow the order. Understood. Wayne walked out of the suite and stood at the elevator entrance on the 5th floor, humming a tune that Mona had never heard before, waiting for the elevator pointer above to turn. Huh. Wayne's breathing stagnated, and he turned his head stiffly, looking at the end of the corridor in disbelief. Grey deathly aura, terrifying sense of oppression. The Death Knight is coming. Restarting the myth. Author, Fengchao Huang. Chapter 165. How could the Death Knight be here? Wayne angrily scolded in his heart. The damn Dullahan had no martial ethics, and he had agreed that as long as he didn't go to Paris, he would not take the initiative to snatch the Shadow Nightmare. This is Luzul City, not belonging to Frank, and far away from Paris. Going back on one's word, no chivalry. Boss, this breath of death. Mona's face was pale, with shock and disbelief in her eyes. She closed her eyes tightly, and her face improved a lot after she changed into a dress girl combat uniform. Before the Dullahan appeared, the huge sense of oppression made Mona tremble with fear, so nervous that she couldn't breathe. If it weren't for 2 consecutive strengthenings, she might not even have the courage to face death. The surging death air overflowed, and the grey mist spread like tentacles, extending from the end of the corridor, climbing along the ground wall and ceiling. The wall lamps on both sides flickered, eroded by the death air, and the carpet rotted at a speed visible to the naked eye, and the walls and ceiling peeled off ashes, falling down like ashes. Ding! The elevator is coming. Don't worry about the elevator, he's coming for me. Wayne ordered, turned around and ran straight to the suite. Taking the elevator at this time will only cause more people to be involved in the death vortex. He didn't want to see the situation, so he kicked the door open and ran straight to the window at the end of the living room. Outside the window, the moon and stars are sparse. The night in Luzul City is far less prosperous than that of London. There are few vehicles and pedestrians on the streets. If the Death Knight can be led to an uninhabited area. No, lead to the Cathedral of Our Lady. Wayne prayed that Archibald had not returned to the Papal States. The other party looked very powerful. As the Pope's helper, he would definitely be able to summon angels to descend. The powerful combination may be able to defeat the Headless Knight. Crash! Wayne broke the glass of the living room, and what greeted him was not an accelerated fall, but another sweet living room. The moment the window was broken, the scenery in front of Wayne changed drastically, and the moon and stars disappeared in an instant, as if traveling through time and space, from one living room to another living room. The suitcases placed in the corner and the faint smell of perfume in the air all proved that this was the presidential suite where he and Mona lived. Mona followed closely behind Wayne and was surprised to find a one-to-one replica of the living room. She felt that what had just been broken was not glass, but a mirror. They entered the mirror world. Boss, it's a magic barrier. I know, find the section that sews the space and rush out. Wayne narrowed his eyes slightly, walked quickly through the living room, pushed the door into the corridor, injected magic into his eyes, and strengthened his supervision to find the weak points of the space. He had entered a similar space barrier before. In London, he was ambushed by a group of magicians of unknown origin. He had experience in breaking through the barriers and knew that the larger the coverage of the space barrier, the more obvious the loopholes in the details. There must be a section when two spaces are sutured. Wayne quickly came to the end of the corridor and did not find the weak point of the space. He looked at the door in front of him, smashed it with a punch, and stood in front of the window glass of the living room with Mona. Seeing Wayne's serious expression, Mona protected him behind her and smashed the glass with a punch. The night sky outside the window disappeared, and another living room appeared in front of the two. What an exaggerated barrier, can it be infinitely extended? Wayne's eyebrows were sweating. This was much more powerful than the barrier he encountered at the beginning. Mona waved her hand and drew a pentagram in the air. The white magic circle rotated in the air. The holy light condensed into a spear beam, penetrated the door of the suite, rushed through the carpeted corridor, and knocked open the door at the end. The glass was broken. Living room, corridor, living room, glass, living room. Until the holy light was exhausted, the end of the barrier was not found. "Boss, there is no way ahead." Mona's expression was solemn. She had never seen such a terrible barrier, and there was no similar one. "Then let's fight." Wayne turned and looked at the end of the corridor. The Dullahan prepared such a big battle, just to get rid of him as a hidden danger. In this case, today we will fight with real swords and guns to completely decide Yulia's belonging. Good horses are only worthy of strong people. Wayne raised his hand and inserted it into the seam of his shirt, took out the holy lance of heaven and entered a semi-liberated state. The night lance is 2 meters long, with a gorgeous and solemn appearance. It is pure white, with smooth lines and golden lines and text, shining and emitting holy light. The text is the holy word of the Golden Rule, which can upgrade the holy light to holy flame, saving magic and thinking while giving the holder more powerful destructive power. To have strength and beauty, heaven knows how to cut leaks. Unfortunately, the holy lance is not suitable for fighting in a small space. Even if it is semi-liberated, 2 meters is too long. Wayne had no choice. He wanted to use Shadow Nightmare, but the despicable Headless Knight took the sword away first, so he couldn't summon it and couldn't use it. The small space also had a great restraint on Mona. The holy marks on the back of her hand emitted a hot and strong light, and the white wings slowly opened behind her. Wayne took a look and had to admit that with her golden eyes and white wings, Mona's profile was solemn and holy, much more like an angel than him. Especially the wings, perfect handlebars. If he launched an attack from the back. But, when did he still mess around? "Are you going to die?" Wayne was deeply annoyed. It was all because of the gift from the Pope. If it weren't for the fact that cross-dressing was like unlocking levels, which made people with obsessive-compulsive disorder unable to stop, he wouldn't have become more and more addicted to it and unknowingly indulged in the dress-changing play. "Damn it, why don't you install an anti-addiction system?" The two of them stood ready, and at the end of the corridor, a lifeless figure in black armor walked out with a sword. The pure white snow-like Shadow Nightmare, the thick night armor, the broken cloak woven with death air, and the black smoke-filled skull head, who else could it be but the Headless Horseman? "Wayne, Sigma." Did the Headless Horseman get his head back? Wayne opened his mouth, and the shock lasted for a long time. The Headless Horseman's recovery of his head means that the Devil's Alliance has been defeated across the board and has returned to its peak to avenge its shame. It is no longer a horseless and headless foot soldier. At the same time, the Death Knight is freed from control, his will returns to himself, and he no longer needs the next knight to inherit the sword and war horse. Thinking of this, Wayne's thoughts were extremely complicated. The Death Knight gave him good senses. He was a pure man who had the courage to face a miserable life. His perseverance and unyielding spirit were admirable. He was happy to see the other party break free from control. But the Death Knight's good life means that he has a bad life and will never be able to ride Yulia openly again. Opposite, the Death Knight saw Wayne, and the black smoke covering the skull's head suddenly stopped, seeming to be stunned. He raised his hand to look at the snow-white sword blade, then looked at Wayne, and murmured, "So that's it, this is the surface world, and it's because of him that I was projected here." The skull head laughed a few times, and the beating white light in its eyes suddenly turned scarlet. He held the knight's sword with both hands on top of his head, struck forward hard, and slashed out a manic storm surrounded by death. Boom! The wind was strong, the air current was rushing, and the huge roar was like thunder exploding in the ears. The sword wind cut through the corridor, lifted the ceiling upwards, collapsed the ground downwards, and the walls on both sides exploded along the cracks with a loud bang. In the storm, grey lines entwine, corroding everything in its path, erasing everything and turning it into ashes. After receiving this sword, the flesh and blood on the body will be picked clean in an instant. Wayne held the holy spear in his hand, golden light surged in his eyes, the spear thrust out, and the holy white light stirred the air vortex. The air was like an explosion, being stirred into a huge spiral drill visible to the naked eye, carrying roaring sonic booms and screams, and was pressed out like meteors and meteorites. The light and death energy collided, the hurricane rolled and twisted into a ball, and the space shook violently like water. The light sheds its outer shell, and the scorching holy flames burn blazingly, never losing sight of the aura of death. The spilled energy surged in all directions, the shock wave swept across, and the entire corridor was razed to the ground in an instant. When the two energies collided violently, a white light flashed and rushed in front of the Death Knight in the blink of an eye. It was a spear condensed by holy light. Rightward arrow. Mona. The Death Knight didn't take it seriously and didn't even look at it. Death energy surged around his body, wiping out the incoming holy spear with even more powerful energy. During the collision, the energy holy spear shattered into points of light, and like stars falling, passed through the curtain of death and hit the Death Knight head on. His body swayed, and he heard a loud roar in front of him, and the surrounding space boiled like water. The power of the spiral holy flame increased tenfold, driving away death in one fell swoop. The remaining force not only hit the Death Knight, but the landslide and tsunami erupted like an unstoppable avalanche, crushing the Death Knight and retreating continuously. The Death Knight didn't notice for a moment, and the white bone body covered in black armor slowly lifted off the ground, and was swept away by the roaring holy flames. It smashed more than 10 corridors in a row before it stopped. The beating light in the skull's eyes paused, then came back online and returned to scarlet. Looking at the completely collapsed ground, he stepped forward and burst out with magic power, teleporting to Wayne with his sword in hand. Bite! Wayne was well prepared, holding the holy spear to block the falling shadow nightmare. His golden eyes looked at the red light spot, feeling that the other person was extremely strange. Wayne felt that the Death Knight in front of him was so different from what he had in mind that he was not the same person at all. The illusion was too outrageous. The third person picked up the shadow nightmare, and Yulia was ridden by Huang Mao again. According to the statement, it is not only the headless horseman who has been cheated, but also the current rider Wayne. Wayne didn't allow it. Who said, "I would rather rape everyone in the world than ask everyone in the world to rape me"? This is the final bottom line of the pure love god of war. Mona held the energy holy spear in her hand and continued to attack the Death Knight. The stigmata exploded, and the golden low holy flame extinguished the air of death again and again, not giving the Death Knight a chance to explode, which greatly relieved Wayne's pressure. The Death Knight was extremely annoyed. He had no interest in Mona and only cared about Wayne in front of him. The black smoke roared, "The light on you is so dazzling. Why are you not a Death Knight? You betrayed the goddess. With the shadow nightmare in your hands, how could I become a Death Knight?" Wayne was sprayed with confusion. Under the cover of Mona, the holy will of the Golden Rule and the holy spear of heaven merged. The whole body was covered with white light like a torch, and fiercely burning white holy flames rose up. Traitor, you don't deserve to live, let alone enjoy this peaceful world. Not to be outdone, the Death Knight exploded with intense death energy, wrapped its grey tentacles around it, and turned into a grey ball with a diameter of 2 meters, cutting off all life around it and wrapping itself tightly in it. The space rippled like water waves, and unimaginable energy exploded. The terrifying storm swept away and spread. The scorching holy flames opened up waves of scorching air in the air, and the cold death air arbitrarily destroyed all surrounding objects. The ground collapsed, and the two people in the confrontation fell to the lower level, and then continued to collapse and fell to the next level again. Mona watched helplessly as the two people opened up the narrow space and it became wider and wider. She spread her wings behind her and flew downwards. Wayne and the Death Knight fought to the first floor of the hall. It was a pure energy collision without any skills at all. Whoever was forced to have more magic power had more energy. In this case, his poor skill in using a lance was masked. The Death Knight didn't know, he only knew that he had completed the tactical suppression, and then he would win if Wayne was killed alive. He wants Wayne to die in extreme pain. This is the price for betraying the goddess of death, and it is also his desire and hatred for the world where Wayne lives. The mirror world, also known as the inner world and the reverse world, is a dark, cruel, desperate, and sad world composed of the negative aspects of the external world. The inner world is the trash can of the outer world, and it is also a powder keg, injected with all the unstable factors. It is on the verge of collapse every day, and various tragedies are staged anytime and anywhere. When the negative emotions reach the limit, the other world will completely collapse. And because of the mirror effect, the other world will revive again. While resurrected, it will replicate the outer world one-to-one and continue to serve as the trash can of the outer world. Beings in the inner world are aware of the existence of the outer world. When you look up at the sky, you can see the mirror and the negative emotions that are constantly falling in the mirror. A curse or an evil thought in the outer world will intensify the process of destruction of the inner world. People living here are eager to enter the outside world, but they also hate the outside world and resent the irresponsible littering behavior on the opposite side. Closer to home, the Death Knight is Wayne from the other world. His hatred for Wayne has reached the extreme and he wants him to die in the most painful way. Boom! The surging energy was released wantonly, and the two fell to the ground and entered the upside-down hotel lobby. According to the polarity of the mirror, the ceiling of this hall is downward, and everything is reversed, rotated 180 degrees. Mona did not rush to help Wayne. She looked in the mirror and saw herself. He was wearing a white battle uniform of the Holy See, looking as ferocious as an evil ghost, and the cross pattern on his back was blood red. Mona felt evil in the other person, pure evil. This malice distorted faith and made the holiness of the cross no longer exist. The four eyes looked at each other. Mona felt heartbroken, while Lamona's facial features were distorted and screamed. She waved her hand and condensed a spear composed of black holy light. Magic power exploded under her feet, and she rushed towards himself through the air. Hiss! The black holy light dissipated, and Lamona was pierced by the holy light spear. The tip of the spear sank into her chest and came out from behind, tearing the red cross pattern into pieces. Mona's version has been updated, twice. Lamona didn't have any, neither a stigmata nor a new uniform. There was no comparability between the two in terms of strength. The gap was so big that they would instantly kill each other upon meeting. Lamona held the holy light spear with both hands, her mouth was bleeding, the blood in her eyes slowly melted away, and she cast an extremely longing look at herself. This look made Mona's heart palpitate. She hesitated for a moment and couldn't bear to kill the other party. Lamona didn't think so. The magic power under her feet erupted and she rushed towards her. She looked into each other's eyes and said with great desire, "You are so happy. You get everything you want. You have everything. Mona opened her mouth and found that her throat seemed to be blocked and she couldn't say anything. Inconsolable because she literally got everything she wanted. The light in Raimena's eyes gradually dimmed, and her body fell apart like a broken mirror. Grab whatever you have in your hands and don't let it leave, otherwise, I will be you. Never let go. Outside the hotel, more than a dozen men in black robes were stunned, looking at the precarious crystal ball, all in disbelief. What's going on? The mirror space projection barrier shouldn't consume so many elements. Is the woman so powerful in the other world? Projection requires energy. The most basic space energy is the four elements of earth, fire, water, and wind. Magic power can also be used. Most people don't dare to play like this. The magic power and vitality will be drained instantly. The amount of energy consumed depends on the strength of the person being projected. Enough four elements are stored in the crystal ball to ensure that the trip is foolproof. As a result, within 10 minutes of the start, the space projection barrier would collapse, which made all the men in black robes exclaimed in disbelief. It shouldn't be, that woman is not a legendary mage. I know, there are other powerful people hidden in the Moonlight Church's team, and there is more than one. Damn it, no matter how you made the intelligence, no Frank would make such a low-level mistake. Chester, what now? Shut up and don't call me by my name outside. Chester, who was wearing a black robe, did not hesitate and ordered, according to the current trend, when the four elements are exhausted, the crystal ball will collapse immediately, and the mirror space cannot be maintained. Using the Forbidden Demon Realm is the only way. WWTT Gonko. Use it now. Otherwise, if the Moonlight Church people kill us, our identities will be exposed. The Ministry of Magic will not admit that they ambushed the High Priest of the Moonlight Church, and we will be executed as black magicians. Everyone was silent and began to prepare the magic Forbidden Realm. Chester is right, the mission they perform cannot be exposed. Once exposed, the Ministry of Magic may still be brothers with the Moonlight Church, but they will definitely be publicly executed, still in the name of traitors. Be careful, this is not an ordinary forbidden magic field. It blocks not only the four elements, but also the magic power of the magician. I know XN. Have you brought your guns? I've prepared them a long time ago. With so many guys, the Golden Mage can't take a few hits. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Restarting the Myth. Author, Fengchao Huang. Chapter 166. The shadow nightmare is as fast as lightning, roars of death, and the grey ball expands and spreads, impacting all tangible and intangible objects around it. Even the incombustible holy flame showed signs of decline under the powerful death impact. Very strong. But it's not strong enough. Wayne held the holy spear to block the shadow nightmare, and the golden light flashed in his eyes. Although the Death Knight was extremely powerful, the strength shown by the opponent was far less terrifying and invincible than he imagined. Wayne silently made an assessment. Not to mention compared to the Headless Horseman in his heyday, even compared to him wearing a vest, his understanding of facing death was still 3 points weaker. Moreover, it is not as good as him in terms of strength. Then there is nothing to be afraid of. I can't beat the Headless Horseman, so I can't beat you. The ferocious light in Wayne's eyes surged, the magic wave swept away, and the holy flames that surrounded him exploded. He held the shadow nightmare with the holy spear of heaven, pressing the Death Knight forward to charge forward. Boom! 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 Walls were shattered one after another. These brick walls, corroded by the breath of death, were loose and soft. They were unable to withstand the force of Wayne and would have turned into a shabby project if touched. You said that I betrayed the goddess, haha, as pious as you are, this is nothing more than that. After confirming that the opponent was not as scary as he imagined, Wayne's words became more flexible. You have a weak body, poor spells, loose spirit, slow reaction, and none of your movements are decent. You are the only one who is a Death Knight. Bah, I saw it, it's all embarrassing. The Death Knight roared again and again, and Wayne was so angry that he became angry. The ruby on the hilt of the Shadow Nightmare glowed, and a portal opened beside him. The undead horse jumped out, spitting purple flames from its mouth and nose and burning towards Wayne. Yulia, even you betrayed me. Wayne waved his hand and sprinkled the holy flames to act as a barrier, angrily scolding Yulia for his traitorous behavior. He had previously said that he would never leave her, and she gently expressed her joy under his crotch. As soon as the camera turned, he forgot about the old yellow hair when he got the new yellow hair. It's okay if you don't want this horse. You are not a Death Knight, and you have never been loyal to the goddess, so how can you talk about betrayal? Seeing that Wayne was furious, the Death Knight laughed and ordered the undead horse to continue charging. Today he vowed to cut off Wayne's head. When I became a knight, you, a tadpole, hadn't found your mother yet. When it comes to talking skills, Wayne is much better than the Death Knight. He waved the holy spear to sweep away the Death Knight, facing the impact of the undead warhorse without dodging. He stepped sideways, clenched a fist with one hand, and the edge of his fist exploded with magic power, rounding it and hitting the undead warhorse in the face. There was a muffled sound, and the undead warhorse staggered back. Wayne's eyelids twitched, and the holy light covered his palms, dispelling the stinging pain that penetrated deep into the bone marrow. I was careless and forgot that there were bones on the other side. However, after a brief moment of contact, Wayne found that Yulia was far from the cheerful little mare he knew. She was lifeless and not happy at all. Not the lifelessness of the skeleton, but the emotion. Both the Headless Horseman and Wayne take great care of Yulia. In this environment, Yulia is carefree and innocent, but stupid and not very smart. Yulia was happy because she didn't have to think too much. The undead warhorse in front of me was different. It exuded a gloomy and dead energy from the inside out, like a walking corpse, with no free life at all. At first, Wayne thought that the other party was nostalgic and was forced to attack his former master, so he was depressed and lacked energy. Looking into those eyes, he realized that it was not his horse at all. Never ridden one. A Death Knight suddenly appeared, an undead horse that he had never seen before. Wayne became more and more confused as he fought, having no idea what he was fighting. On the roof, Mona waved her wings and landed. She was bathed in holy light, her wings extended, and she shed swords of holy light. At the same time, the voice of her thoughts reached Wayne's heart. The voice within the team exists due to the establishment of the master-servant contract. Master, I just met myself, a negative version of myself. If I guess correctly, the Death Knight you are fighting against. Mona didn't say the next words, it was too offensive and contrary to her faith. She believed that with the Master's intelligence, he would react with a little reminder. Wayne was surprised to receive the message. He reacted and looked at the knights and horses on the field in surprise. The feathers of the holy light fell interspersedly, densely as rain, exploded with rumbles and vibrated continuously, hitting the floors and collapsing layer by layer. The Death Knight is entangled with death energy, not afraid of Mona's thin holy light, even itching is too weak. The space door opened beside him, and he stepped onto the undead war horse. His breath was connected with the war horse, and the sword as pure as snow was dazzling. Wayne knew what would happen next. The space door opened, and the Death Knight appeared behind him on a war horse, swinging his sword and cutting off his head. He had practiced this move many times. Wayne stayed put away the holy spear and dispersed the holy will of the golden rule. If the other person was really him, no, he was very sure that the other person was not him. So, if Yulia is not Yulia, and Shadow Nightmare is not Shadow Nightmare, then The dark portal opened behind Wayne, and the undead warhorse spewed purple flames and jumped out. The Death Knight raised his sword and slashed straight at Wayne's neck. Owner. Mona was shocked, flapping her wings and descending, rushing towards the center of the battlefield as fast as possible, trying to block the blow with herself. Wayne's eyes filled with gray, he waved his hand to pull out the Shadow Nightmare from the air, and struck back sideways, blocking the impact of the knight from the opposite side. Boom! Wayne plowed the ground with his feet and was knocked 10 meters away by the powerful force. When he stabilized his body, the Shadow Nightmare in his hand reflected a skeletal face filled with black smoke. J-j-j-j. X2. The Death Knight and the undead warhorse were both stunned. Mona fell into the air with a look of horror on her face. Without stopping, she smashed into the wall with a bang and fell into the ruins. Her angel master is broken. You said I betrayed death, then what is this? Wayne swung his sword light, cut through the space with thick death energy, and opened the dark portal with a hiss. Yulia jumped out of the portal, lowered her head and rubbed Wayne's cheek affectionately. The close contact between bones made Mona, who was leaning her head, feel cold in her heart. She hasn't posted it yet. Thinking of what she had said, that once she lost everything, she would degenerate into a devil, her heart clenched so hard that it hurt beyond words. She is more afraid of losing everything than falling into a devil. Master, what is that? After Yulia finished posting Wayne, he looked at the knights and horses opposite in surprise, as if he was looking into a mirror, a dirty mirror. I don't know. It should be related to the barrier I'm in. Wayne jumped on the back of Yulia's horse and pointed his sword pointed at the ground. Yulia, that horse hit me just now and used your face to make me sad for a long time. How unreasonable. Yulia instantly turned on the rampage mode, stomped on the ground with her front hooves, and breathed purple flames from her mouth and nose, trying to give the Baichi opposite her some color. The portal flashed, and Yulia jumped into it with Wayne. On the opposite side, the Death Knight also rode the undead horse and rushed into the portal. The sound of clanging echoed in the air, and from time to time there was an explosion, or a wall or ceiling collapsed. The dark portal of the portal flickered, grey mist flew wildly, and the terrifying corrosive force corrupted the surrounding things, causing the ashes to be blown away by the storm and filled the entire space. The gloomy mist intertwines the dilapidated reality and the decadent illusion, forming a strange and confusing picture. Mona stared blankly at the changes in front of her, her ears lingering on the conversation between Wayne and Yulia. She heard clearly that Yulia called her master. Master is not her exclusive title, there is another horse who shares her honor. Boom! The portal tore apart, and a black shadow fell from the sky, hitting the ground heavily, crushing the ground and falling into the corridor on the next floor. Wayne swayed out of the portal on Yulia, looked down from a high position, and said disdainfully, "Your death is nothing more than this, you are too weak. Your weakness is the greatest disloyalty to the goddess." The Death Knight roared in his throat, "The barrier cannot project all my strength. I didn't lose to you, I just..." "Shut up, only the weak will find excuses, the real strong are not afraid of any challenge." Wayne's words were flying, repeatedly trampling the opponent's self-esteem, and Yulia followed up by spitting purple flames, silently taunting Baichi below. The effect was average, the undead warhorse felt as if its heart had died, and it was numb throughout the process without any ripples. "You are too weak. How can you protect the goddess if you are so weak? Hand over the Shadow Nightmare. You are not worthy of the title of knight." Wayne increased his output and took a fancy to the sword in the Death Knight's hand. Although he has a handle, there is no such thing as too much of a good thing, and perhaps this is an opportunity to unravel his inability to meet the Headless Horseman. The Death Knight was furious and waved his sword to create a death vortex. The twisted air mass expanded rapidly, with a bang, like a balloon exploding, and all elements were silent at this moment. Wayne looked at his body in surprise as an unspeakable power enveloped him, suppressing his power of death. It was not a seal, but it did affect his ability to control the shadow nightmare. Yulia snorted, but did not spit out purple flames. She shook her head and shook her tail in confusion. Master, my nose is blocked. Do I have a cold? No way, you are dead. Wayne replied angrily and looked intently at the Death Knight below, suspecting that it was the other party's fault. No, the Death Knight was worse than him. Suppressed by invisible forces, he was unable to maintain his knight form. The black armor disappeared, revealing his original appearance. The undead horse under his crotch remained motionless and tried to open the portal, but failed. Wayne looked at the knight's face, which was exactly the same as his own, and the white light in his eyes danced violently. He was very sure that the person facing him was not him, but when he saw this face, he still couldn't help but feel a little suspicious. Is it really him? Whether it is yes or no, you will know after you try it. Wayne jumped off Yulia and came to the Death Knight with the Shadow Nightmare in hand. He pointed his sword directly. You can't maintain the face of a knight with just a few restrictions. It's so embarrassing. Now, get off your horse and fight with me. I will give you a decent death, and let you die with the last bit of knightly dignity. The Death Knight's face was ashen, and the hand holding the Shadow Nightmare was shaking. He abandoned his horse and turned to infantry, and walked towards Wayne with bloodshot eyes. Only then did Wayne realize that the other party was in rags and was dressed like a beggar. The two raised their swords and crossed each other in mid-air. The Death Knight said coldly, I can't believe that you have a disgusting mouth, but you still retain the spirit of a knight. Idiot, this is the privilege of the strong. You are weak, you don't understand, you only deserve to be pitied. Wayne sneered, and at the moment when the Death Knight was furious, he violently suppressed the Shadow Nightmare. Powerful force surged toward the opposite side, completing the suppression in an instant. Despicable, it hasn't opened yet. Hiss. The sword edge scratched his neck. The Death Knight held the sword in one hand and covered his throat with the other. Blood spilled from his fingers and he coughed repeatedly. Wayne waved his sword, shook off the blood that didn't exist, and shook his head. Wayne, you are really not me. The Death Knight staggered and knelt on one knee. Boundless coldness hit him, and the world in his eyes was dark. The undead horse behind him remained motionless, not expressing the slightest grief because its master was about to die. I am you, a you wrapped in negativity. He struggled to raise his head, his fierce eyes filled with hatred. I will not die. Next time the mirror world comes, I will definitely chop off your head. The words fell, the mirror shattered, and the Death Knight and Warhorse disappeared without a trace. What is the mirror world? Wayne raised his eyebrows. He tried, but the opponent's strength was too weak, and his speed and nerve reactions were completely unable to keep up. It means that the opponent does not have the Book of Greed, and the essence of life has not been greatly strengthened. He is just an ordinary magician. He can fight him with the Shadow Nightmare in his hand. Without the bonus of the Shadow Nightmare, he is just a piece of cake in front of him. If the mirror world is literal and can reflect the exact same version of himself, Wayne has reason to suspect that the mirror has not been refreshed and is not reflecting him, but the Wayne before him. Thinking of this, Wayne took a breath. When he first arrived, he was entangled by the Death Church, and the Observer, one of the three major agents, personally issued an invitation. Sci-fi was not the first beard cutter. Chrissy was the one who snatched him away from the arms of the goddess of death with her own hands. Master, I cannot open the portal. Yulia jumped off the high platform and told Wayne about his condition. The latter smiled and waved away the Shadow Nightmare. Yulia disappeared along with the Shadow Nightmare. After taking off the Death Knight's vest, Wayne let out another sigh. He could clearly feel it. Not only did the four elements in the air disappear, but the magic power in his body was also suppressed to the point where he could not move. Empty thoughts but unable to release magic. How can magic be such an inconvenience? Although I don't know what the restriction is, for a truly strong person, this restriction can be broken at any time. Wayne was very sure that he might not be able to resist this restriction, but the Death Knight's vest could, and he could also sense the Shadow Nightmare and could summon it to him at any time. In addition, the chest is squirming, but the hook is not sealed. Owner. Mona jumped off the high platform and stood helplessly behind Wayne, as aggrieved as an abandoned puppy, not even daring to breathe loudly. Don't tell anyone what you just saw. This is my trust in you. Don't let me down, Wayne confessed. When he turned around, he saw Mona's aggrieved expression. She was so pitiful that she almost cried. He thought for a moment and roughly understood the reason, and waved to Mona with a smile. Snap. Still sad. Uncomfortable. Snap. Much better. Stop blinking. Just 2 blinks. Any more will be your reward. It's not that easy to lie to me. Refuse to be deceived, start with me. Wayne held Mona in his arms, air waves exploded under his feet, and he jumped up to the top. It has nothing to do with magic, just physical power. Mona, can you still sense magic? The magic power is sealed, and the holy light cannot be released directly. You can use the stigmata, and your thinking will be much slower than usual. Mona raised the back of her hand, and the light of the cross stigma remained undiminished. Wayne nodded. At first, I thought this was a trap of the Death Knight, but he was too weak to pose a threat to me, and you also saw it in the mirror. He looked at the messy corridors. The space was intricately folded, and no overlapping space sections could be found when it was perfectly closed. They are not here for us. There are other magicians fighting in the hotel. Boss, do we want to join the fight? Mona knew that her master would not remain silent. Of course, not to mention dragging me into the battle for no reason. The other party must apologize. I can't just sit back and watch this kind of large-scale killing move that ignores ordinary people. Wayne squinted his eyes and gave a third reason in his mind. He smelled a business opportunity. Such a luxurious handiwork must have a huge purpose. Whether it is the ambusher or the ambush, especially the unlucky one who is ambushed, he must have a heavy treasure on his body. He felt a little wronged, and with tears in his eyes found the lost treasure. Isn't it wonderful that the two sides made peace with each other? Wayne rubbed his hands with a serious face. Let's go. I sensed the magic wave during the previous battle, follow me to carry out justice. Restarting the myth. Author, Fengchao Huang. Chapter 167. The time goes back 20 minutes to 10 o'clock in the evening. Capital Hotel, 4th floor, luxury suite. The stylus of the desktop gramophone fell gently, the stylus rotated, and soft music flowed in every corner of the suite. Philomena put on a bathrobe and walked out of the bathroom. Under the bathrobe, her slender legs were faintly visible, and the neckline was slightly open, revealing her delicate collarbones and fair skin. She sat in front of the makeup mirror and wiped off her night cream. Her face in the mirror was stunning, with her blonde hair flowing down her shoulders like a waterfall. She looked charming. Wayne met the veiled eldest sister in the hotel restaurant. She was her Philomena Ursula, the high priest and golden mage sent by the Moonlight Church to Lundam. If nothing unexpected happens, she will become the top person in charge of the Windsor division of the Moonlight Church and shoulder the important task of the church's expansion in Windsor. The dignified golden mage only lives in luxury suites, not the best presidential suites. This is understandable. If Philomena is just a golden mage, she can live anywhere, but she also has the status of a district high priest and pays for it at public expense. Under such circumstances, it is natural to take the lead and save as much as possible. Other magicians live in ordinary rooms on the 2nd floor, 2 people per room, mainly to save money. Looking at her beautiful face in the mirror, Philomena sighed slightly. She was no longer young. Every time she looked in the mirror, she felt like she was getting older again. As far as appearance is concerned, Philomena has nothing to do with old age. Her manners are elegant and full of mature charm, but she doesn't think so. Even if she is a golden mage, her appearance will remain in peak condition until her death. Philomena felt that her mentality was getting old. Magic keeps her young forever, but the responsibilities on her body make her age day by day. With a 27-year-old face and a rotten and old heart, the more she looks at it, the more unhappy she becomes. For example, this trip to London. The royal family of Windsor agreed to the expansion of the Moonlight Church's power within the country, and the Windsor Ministry of Magic and the Moonlight Church negotiated. During this period, several senior officials from the Ministry of Magic took the opportunity to ask for benefits. It's not for nothing. In the future, the Moonlight Church will expand in Windsor, and the senior management who got the benefits will give the green light to the whole process to ensure that the subsequent progress will go smoothly. It's okay if you don't pay. They are all people with status and can't do anything like wearing small shoes. But if something happens, I'm sorry, I'm not familiar with it. Go over there and line up and go through the process. This is how magic works. Philomena and her party brought the benefits requested by the Ministry of Magic and came to the city of Lozelle as promised. It is a small country with few people. Apart from the Holy See of Heavenly Father, there are no other religious forces in the territory, so it is very suitable for meeting and trading. In a private transaction, neither party knows each other at the end of the transaction, and it will not be made public in the future. The transaction location is located in the Grand Canyon to prevent fraud and the church's resources from being wasted, and also to prevent the Ministry of Magic from turning its back and disowning people. The Moonlight Church and its party have deployed many emergency measures in the Grand Canyon. After waiting for a week, the Ministry of Magic still refused to show up. Life is not easy, the High Priest sighed. If this was the speed at which Windsor went through the process, she felt there was nothing wrong with giving some gifts, so as not to be hampered by everything in the future and have to put off everything she had to do. Philomena applied the night cream and lotion to her legs. After wiping it, she was ready to rest. Before turning off the lights, she faintly noticed some changes in the air. This change was indescribable. Philomena was aware of it but could not describe it. She believed in the Golden Mage's intuition and responded to what she felt. She tightened the ribbon around her waist and stood up to the bedroom window. Outside the window, the moon was shining brightly, and the street lights on both sides of the road extended to the left and right. Several cars passed slowly and leisurely, and nothing seemed out of the ordinary. She squinted her eyes to hide the shock in her eyes, and opened the window in front of her with her hand. There were no stars or moonlight outside the window, and there was only one bedroom that looked like a mirror. The difference was that she was not in the mirror. Boundary. Philomena murmured, suspecting that it was the Ministry of Magic's method. She did not explore the situation in the bedroom opposite. She came to the closet and took out a black suitcase. For a transaction to be a transaction, both parties must be present. It is stealing without the owner's permission, and doing it in front of the owner is called robbery. Philomena looked very ugly. She was bullying customers at the Ministry of Magic store. She wanted benefits but did not want to take responsibility. She looked too ugly. At this moment, there was a loud noise from a corner on the 5th floor, followed by continuous roars and explosions that drifted away into the distance. Philomena sensed the breath of death and the holy light, and was very confused. "Aren't you here for me?" She looked at the direction of the chaotic magic power in surprise. In terms of the level of magic power that exploded, he was a golden mage like her. Two golden mages fighting in a melee. The inexplicable barrier suddenly fell into place. There was another person who was ambushed, and she just happened to live in the same hotel with him. The Ministry of Magic was wrongly blamed. Philomena thought like this, took out a coat, put it on her body, and carried her suitcase to the corridor. The cold death air lingered, and the scattered holy flames burned everywhere. Under the combined effect of the two powerful energies, the fourth floor of the hotel was in a mess. Fortunately, the two golden mages fought farther and farther away, otherwise the innocent people affected would have been miserable. Philomena saw several guests pushing the door and peeking their heads in. She ignored their attempts to strike up a conversation and took the stairs to the second floor. She wanted to ensure that no one was harmed, leave the hotel as soon as possible, and not become a meaningless crowd pleaser. On the third floor, Philomena stopped and frowned at himself who was climbing up the stairs. Her body was covered by a white robe, her blonde hair was withered and dull, her cheeks were so thin that her cheekbones were prominent, and she used rich makeup to cover up her aging appearance. "I found you, Philomena." Raphaelo's purple eyeshadow was thick, and the corners of his black lips were raised, and his smile was particularly creepy. "What are you? Can't you tell?" "I am you." "Sorry, I can't tell." Philomena was silent for a few seconds. She was old and ugly, and her makeup was terrible. She was not her. Raphaelo's eyes flashed scarlet, and his malice was not concealed. His hand hidden in his robe quickly raised up, and he pulled the trigger of the exquisite lady's pistol continuously. The bullet did not hurt Philomena at all. The golden wizard's life barrier opened and blocked all the incoming bullets. Life can evolve. Ordinary people who have not learned magic will have more or less residual in their bodies because of long-term contact with the four elements of earth, fire, water, and wind. They can get a strong body through exercise. Exercise to the extreme, the level of retired urban soldiers, it is possible to condense the seeds of magic. In the hexagram stage, the magician apprentice will inevitably condense the seeds of magic power and initially gain magic power. In the silver stage, the magician's magic power will further grow, and he will master more methods to control magic power. In the gold stage, the magic seeds will blossom and bear fruit, and the life barrier will be born under the action of the golden triangle. In this state, the golden magician can refuse external things and enter the void universe. Can't stay too long, it will go crazy. In the legendary stage, the life barrier evolves into the life force field. The magician has an independent self. At this stage, he can refuse any change and will not go crazy when entering the void universe. The premise of not going crazy is that the legendary magician refuses to change and refuses the omnipresent knowledge. Once a precedent is set, the desire will burst out completely, and the result will be the end of the Lord of the Void. Crazy, insist that you are not crazy. Going up, the life force field still has the possibility of evolution, which requires a large amount of four elements to accumulate. The God's chosen continent cannot meet this requirement. Only the void and the kingdom of God hidden in the void can do it. Digging for the four elements in the void will definitely lead to death. Only by finding the portal to the kingdom of God can it be possible. Considering that the kingdom of God has an owner, the legendary wizard must be mentally prepared to be 007. Only if you are willing can you ascend. If you are not willing, you can only be a legendary wizard in this life. When your life is over, you will die. The camera returns to Philomena. Raphaelo empties the magazine, throws away the lady's pistol in his hand, reaches into the white robe with both hands, and draws a sword and a gun. The single-edged sword represents the waning moon, and the magic pistol symbolizes the new moon. The single-edged sword is slender and straight, and the blade shines coldly, like the Milky Way under the night sky. The light is obscure and dazzling. The new moon pistol is silver-white, longer than ordinary pistols, with an elegant luster, and the overall shape presents a simple line beauty. Seeing these two weapons, Philomena looked solemn. "I began to believe that you are me." "It has always been, hasn't it?" Raphaelo smiled ferociously, and he could no longer bear it. Philomena put down the suitcase, opened her hands, and held the long sword and pistol that looked exactly the same, "At least not now, I am 50 years later, and we meet for the first time. Thank you for telling me how miserable I will be in the future. Bang, bang, bang. LaPhilo raised her gun and shot straight. The bitch has been saying that she is old since they met, and it is endless. At the same time, the people from the Moonlight Church on the second floor met their own faces. Of course, there are also those who did not meet themselves. Although they looked in the mirror, there was nothing in the mirror. The inner world is a trash can with an independent plot. There are birth, aging, sickness and death. The dead cannot be projected into the outer world. The battle was about to break out and entered a white-hot state. The Moonlight Church was caught off guard and lost several silver mages when they met. They were strong, and the opponent was not weak either. They were calculating but not intentional, and fell into a bitter battle with defense as the main focus. They were waiting for the High Priest. The High Priest and themselves launched an offensive and defensive battle. It was difficult to tell the winner in a short time. It's a battle of strength and death. At this time, Wayne was fighting the Death Knight. The magic fluctuations he sensed came from the battle area on the second floor. Although the energy was not strong, it was lively. The fire element crackled and the enthusiasm guided him in the direction. 10 minutes later, the black-robed people could not stand the intense consumption of the four elements. They were afraid that the mirror space projection barrier would collapse, so they opened the forbidden magic field in advance. This move was a last resort. According to the original battle plan, the mirror projection would consume the Moonlight Church first, fight for half an hour, and the damned would die, and the disabled would be disabled, and then open the forbidden magic field to enter and beat. If you are lucky, you may be able to take advantage of the heat. Now it's not possible. The reserves of the four elements are insufficient. Once they are exhausted, the mirror projection barrier will collapse, and the members of the Moonlight Church can leave at any time. If the plan fails, they will all be in trouble. The moment the forbidden magic field was activated, all the magicians in the hotel were affected. The weaker the strength, the greater the impact of the forbidden magic field. The Death Knight, who could fight Wayne on equal terms before, was fooled by the mouth cannon and directly received a box lunch. The people of the Moonlight Church were shocked and terrified. They could not use magic, and there were no hot weapons around them. Their fighting spirit dropped to the freezing point. The selves in the mirror world were fearless. The crazy inner world had already tortured them beyond human form. Driven by resentment, they raised their fists and launched close combat. In the corridors and guest rooms, melee figures can be seen everywhere. Boom! In a corridor somewhere, Philomena and herself competed in swordsmanship. The Golden Wizard could not break free from the constraints of the forbidden magic field. When he could not use magic, the crescent pistol was not as convenient as a fire stick. The two ladies had gorgeous swordsmanship, agile posture, and agile movements. Their long golden hair fluttered, and the sharp sword light intertwined. The cold line of flowing clouds passed through the air. When they collided, it was like a dance full of beauty. This was not a simple contest of strength. Every strike contained skills and combat experience. The same teacher taught them, and they could not break their moves. Different worlds mean different people. Even if it is the same face, there will definitely be changes. The living environment of LaPhilo destined her swordsmanship to be extreme and vicious. She gradually took the initiative and oppressed Philomena. The tip of the sword danced with cold light, colliding with the gorgeous flowing water picture. Philomena's defense was impeccable, and she said calmly, "Stop, the conspirator is hiding in the dark. Even if you can kill me, you are not the final winner." LaPhilo couldn't bear to hear this. When the battle started, she lost control of her emotions and fell into hysteria. Her eyes were red and she only wanted to kill herself in the outer world. Philomena was helpless when she saw this. The enemy had not yet appeared. The two consecutive barriers were big moves. She wanted to win her over to stop the meaningless fight, but the other party didn't listen at all. In this case, she could only get rid of herself first. Philomena took light steps, took several rises and falls, and jumped into the ruins of the corridor shattered by magic. Sensing the sword blade following closely behind her, she deflected the sword body calmly, bent her waist and arched the bridge, touched the ground with one hand, and the straight waistline tightened the bathrobe. When the sharp sword blade passed in front of her eyes, the cold front in her hand swept down. In his haste to attack, Rifilo rushed too fast and failed to avoid the sword. The bloodline on his chest and abdomen was torn, and the bright red soaked his white robe in an instant. Philomena supported the ground with one hand, and the sword passed by, and the whip kick swept across, kicking Rifilo hard into the distance. She picked up the suitcase in the ruins and said kindly, "You are not from this world. The grievances of this world have nothing to do with you. The injury is not fatal. Don't chase me anymore. Wait for the forbidden magic field to disperse, heal your wounds and go back." With that, she left without looking back. "Stop, I haven't lost yet," Rifilo shouted loudly, covering the sword wound on his chest and abdomen and chasing forward. "You are not my opponent. The killing intent is too strong, which disturbs your thinking." Philomena walked away, regardless of whether she could hear it or not, looking for the second floor in the chaotic space. She persuaded, if the latter insisted on going her own way, she could only pray for the other party. "I hope he is okay." First the mirror space, then the forbidden magic field, each move was fatal, leaving no chance for survival. These two barriers are not something that ordinary forces can support. Philomena's heart was shrouded in gloom, guessing the possibility of the Windsor Ministry of Magic, considering that there were still two golden wizards fighting, leaving a glimmer of hope. On the other side, Rifilo chased with a pale face, blood dripping down his robe to the ground, and every step was extremely difficult. "Excuse me, lady, are you the person in the mirror?" Hearing the voice behind him, Rifilo turned his head fiercely. "It seems so." Seeing the red light in the other's eyes, Wayne nodded secretly, hesitated a little, and prepared to take a detour to leave. "He doesn't hit women." "Wait a minute." Rifilo called Wayne out, looked at Mona beside him, his eyes stopped at the neck, and swallowed his saliva with a little desire. Mona frowned, full of malice, making her very uncomfortable. "Boss, can I beat her?" "Forget it, don't bully people, she is so injured." Wayne shook his head and said sympathetically, "Take her sword, it's too dangerous, if she falls, it will aggravate her injuries." "You are so considerate." "I have been like this since I was a child, I am used to being a good person." Wayne sighed, "He is good at everything, but he is too kind. Because of this, he has suffered a lot in society." Rifilo listened to the conversation between the master and servant in amazement, and laughed out loud in anger. Although she was injured, she still had the foundation of the Golden Mage, and was confident that she could subdue the other party with only the essence of life. Kill the man, and leave the woman to replenish blood. A white light flashed in front of his eyes. Rifilo fell down with a dizzy head. Before he fainted, he was only surprised that Mona could still use magic. Ignoring the forbidden magic field, at least it is a legendary mage level, that's good. In this way, she is dead in the surface world. Mona retracted her straight punch, and the light of the holy mark on the back of her hand faded. She didn't know that she had knocked down the golden wizard of the other world with one punch. She picked up the long sword on the ground. Seeing that Rifilo was seriously injured, she couldn't bear it, so she tore the other's robe into strips and bandaged it simply. Good people are rewarded, and they were rewarded on the spot. When she lifted the white robe, Mona saw the holster hanging on the other's waist, and her eyes lit up immediately. "Boss, there is a gun. That's more dangerous. If it goes off accidentally, the injured person's life will be in danger." "Hurry up and get it," Wayne said hurriedly. "Oh." Mona knew that this behavior was shameful, and the education she received did not allow her to help the evil, but then again, the truth is not about the person, and if it were the angel master, everything could be explained. The master told her not to ask questions, and she was obedient, so there was no need to explain. The sword is a bit thin, the gun is good. Hey, magic pistol. Wayne's eyes lit up. What did he say? The times have changed, and someone must have updated the version. Great, I finally found you. Wayne took 2 steps forward and memorized Raphilo's face in his mind. He wanted to see if the original pistol was the one he had lost. Restarting the myth. Author, Fengchao Huang. Chapter 168. The second floor of the hotel. Around the second floor, the originally spacious and bright corridor now has only broken walls. The air was filled with the smell of dust and blood, the collapsed ceiling was covered with traces of smoke, and traces of blood splatters could be seen everywhere. Beside the collapsed walls and broken doors, several cold corpses stared with wide gray eyes. Philomena came to the corridor with a sword in hand, and looked at the scene in front of her, with a fierce look in her eyes. No matter who the attacker was or who was ambushing them, it was an indisputable fact that the Moonlight Church and his party suffered heavy casualties. If it was really the Windsor Ministry of Magic, she would definitely make the other party pay for this hatred with blood. Ahead, the sound of fighting came. The fighting was fierce and the screams continued. Philomena tapped her toes on the ground, the sword blade swept through the air and spread the silver light, her figure flickering like a phantom. At the end of the corner of the corridor, the Moonlight Church group was forced into a utility room. The human wall acted as a human shield, blocking the big tattered iron door. The self in the other world rushes like a mad dog, loses magic power, only looks at the essence of life, and is also a strong man per person. It is easy to tear down bricks and walls. At this time, the wall of the utility room has been demolished to pieces. Seeing themselves with despair on the other side of the hole, the mad dogs became even more malicious and charged like they lost their minds. Silvery white light crossed the flowing clouds and water lines, and the sharp howling stopped abruptly. Heads fell to the ground one by one, and their hands and feet twitched. The mirror shattered and these figures disappeared. High Priest. Seeing the female war goddess in their hearts appear, the remaining 5 people were overjoyed. Everyone was injured, and their smiles looked particularly sad. Looking at the last 5 people, Philomena felt deeply guilty. I'm sorry, I was late. High Priest, what kind of magic did those people do just now? Our magic is sealed. Everyone is dead. Philomena raised her hand to signal everyone to be quiet. They are us from the other world. I just met myself and managed to get rid of their pursuit. Inside the world. It was the first time that everyone heard that such a world existed in the world. Mirror space, a world opposed to the gods' chosen continent, a world abandoned by the gods. Philomena briefly explained, frowned, and said, the reason why you can't use magic is because the enemy has set up a forbidden magic area. They won't stop there. You can't directly participate in the battle. Protecting yourself is the priority. I don't want to see it again. Someone is injured. Everyone was very angry when they heard this. If you fight in an upright manner, you will die. There is nothing to say if your skills are not as good as others. It is too humiliating to die by such despicable means. High Priest, who is the enemy? One person asked. It's not certain yet. Philomena looked very sad. She had some guesses, but she couldn't talk nonsense without evidence. High Priest, the hotel has been placed under a forbidden magic field, and in the other world you mentioned, the enemy will encounter the same situation when they come in. How can they continue to attack? It's not that simple. Since the enemy dares to do this, they must have their own methods. Philomena sighed helplessly, thinking about what to do next. She first thought of the golden mage on the 5th floor, who was also ambushed. It would be beneficial to both of them if they could join forces to fight against the enemy. After all, the enemy's large array made it clear that they would not leave anyone alive, and there was reason for cooperation. Furthermore, according to Philomena's opinion, the golden mage on the 5th floor should be from the Heavenly Father's Holy See. Lucerberg belongs to the Heavenly Father's Holy See's sphere of influence and can put pressure on the attackers. Unknowingly, Philomena has identified the murderer as the Windsor Ministry of Magic. It was outrageous. She couldn't figure out why the Ministry of Magic killed the people. What benefit did the evil Moonlight Church bring to Windsor? Could it be that members of the Church of Darkness and Death had entered the upper echelons of the Ministry of Magic in Windsor? Another point is that Philomena is curious about the identity of the Golden Mage on the 5th floor. Shenjun has seen it with his own eyes. It is extremely pure and cannot be mistaken. But if it is a mirror space, what about the death faith that fights against it? Philomena had no clue and didn't want to wait for the enemy to come to the door. She opened the suitcase and looked at the few items inside. Book of Moon Shadow. Manuscripts of the Forgotten. The Flesh and Blood of the Starry Sky Beast. Ring of Fire Element. And a bottle of sealed dragon blood. These 5 treasures are from the collection of the Moonlight Church. The senior officials of the Ministry of Magic in Windsor asked for them. 5 people asked for 5 things each. Among them, the most precious one is undoubtedly the Book of Moon Shadow, which involves the Moonlight Church's belief in magic. Even if it is repeatedly deleted, the recorded content is still precious. In order to better develop in Windsor, the Moonlight Church headquarters made a decision that went against their ancestors and reluctantly took out the secrets that were not passed on, deleting them for trading. In comparison, several other items are valuable, but because they have nothing to do with faith, their value is greatly reduced. Such as dragon blood. There are no giant dragons in the God's chosen continent, and there is no dragon blood circulating in the market. Only a few churches have reserves. The source cannot be studied. I only know that it was many years ago. Philomena looked over one by one, staying for a long time on the flesh and blood of the starry sky beast and the dragon's blood. She thought for a long time and held the sealed bottle containing the flesh and blood of the starry sky beast in her hand. High Priest, what are you doing? A silver mage noticed Philomena's choice and took the initiative. If it is used in that way, why not let me do it? As your subordinate, I am more suitable to bear this responsibility than you. Philomena rejected it and said simply, I am a golden mage. Even if I can't use magic, my mind can suppress erosion, and long-term use will not be affected. What about after that? The silver mage smiled bitterly. How do you take out the flesh and blood? If your life goes on the wrong evolutionary path, it will be difficult to correct it in the future. I have my own way. Philomena answered confidently. Now is not the time to think so much. Survive first. Only if you survive can you be picky. She led the team members out of the church headquarters. Losing most of them was a serious dereliction of duty. The remaining people must survive. This is her responsibility and persistence as a leader. The group rested for a while, protected the suitcase in the middle, and followed Philomena into the 5th floor of the hotel. To be precise, there is no 5th floor anymore. The death aura eroded and wiped out the space where the 5th floor was located. This is just the edge. There is nothing left in the central battle area. Looking down from a high place, 3 of the 5-story hotels with folded mirrors collapsed, and the bottom was as dark as a cliff. Failure to find a partner made Philomena worried, and she prayed that the other side would shake hands and stop fighting, and everyone would join hands to fight against the unknown enemy. Boom! A loud noise came from the side and the window of the outer wall of the hotel was broken, and more than 10 people in black robes slowly walked over. Philomena looked closely, and the 4 people in the lead were wearing white masks, and their true faces could not be seen clearly. The mask is very interesting, it is some kind of magic prop, which is related to the barrier, ensuring that the four people can move freely in the mirror projection without being affected by the inner world. The remaining 8 people in black robes did not have masks, and they were described as cold and professional soldiers, each holding a submachine gun. They were well prepared, and they clearly knew the existence of the forbidden magic field early on. Seeing these people clearly, Philomena waved her hand to let her people retreat to the corner, and said coldly, "The Ministry of Magic in Windsor, right?" Chester sneered and said, "You can think so, or you can treat us as Frank's black magician. It doesn't matter what it is. You will all die today." "What if I destroy the trading items?" Philomena did not show any weakness. "I don't know what trading items are. Our mission is to kill you all and never let the Moonlight Church enter Windsor." Chester said ambiguous words, resolutely not giving the other party a chance to trick him. Considering that too much talk will lead to mistakes, he waved his hand and commanded 8 soldiers to step forward, staggered into a queue, and pulled the trigger to start fire suppression. Da-da-da-da. In the narrow corridor, the submachine gun is the absolute king. Just one shot can dominate the scene and declare that all beings are equal. Because of the forbidden magic field, Philomena could not open the life barrier. Facing the powerful firepower, she had to retreat to the corner. The 8 soldiers were well trained, marching forward in formation, one firing, the others following, completing the suppression without wasting a single bullet. Seeing this, Philomena had to think of another way, and gestured to let the 5 team members cover the suitcases and leave, and destroy them directly when necessary. She was responsible for the rear guard. The 5 knew that they would be a burden if they stayed, prayed that the high priest was safe, and took the suitcases to evacuate to the stairs. The soldiers came to the end of the corridor with guns, and swept the guns towards the place where Philomena was hiding, but saw nothing. At this moment, the wall on their side exploded, and the silver-white sword light cut through the airwaves. Philomena flipped over the wall, and the phantom figure left many after-images, and the long sword in her hand slashed the necks of the 8 soldiers, almost passing them in the blink of an eye. She kept running towards the end of the corridor. Behind, the necks of the 8 soldiers were cracked, but no blood flowed out. The white flesh was squirming, and the wound closed in an instant. 4 black gun muzzles were pointed at Philomena, and bullets rained down like a torrential rain, covering Philomena's back and passing straight through. After image. Behind the corner, Philomena changed her arm to hold the sword, her right hand drooped at her side, and her eyes were even colder. Alchemy into a formation, magic modified life forms, it is indeed the Ministry of Magic in Windsor. She looked at her bleeding arm, without thinking about it, crushed the sealed bottle containing the flesh and blood of the star beast, and used this piece of flesh and blood to block the gunshot wound. Only magic can fight magic. The other side modified life and interfered with evolution without regard for the consequences, so she also changed it. Chase after it, her body is very important, I want to confirm it myself. Chester ordered, changed the road to chase the suitcase alone, leaving 3 colleagues to command the soldiers. As a golden wizard, he had heard of Philomena's reputation. She was a crazy woman. She looked dignified and elegant, but she could do anything when she was forced. Just in case, the silver wizard over there is easier to bully. After Chester left, 3 masked men commanded soldiers to chase Philomena, saying foul language constantly, trying to provoke her anger and make her lose her mind and choose to fight head-on. The sound of gunfire led the way, attracting a sneaky figure. \U0026\U0026180. Wayne looked out and saw 3 black-robed buttocks with their backs to him. The distance was 15 meters, and he could complete a triple kill in the case of a sneak attack. Mona followed behind Wayne with bated breath, and when she looked out, she also saw a buttock facing her sideways. Want to pinch? Stand here and don't move. I'll be back soon. Don't reveal that you can use magic without my order. Wayne's mind transmitted, and he carefully touched the three black-robed figures. The situation in the field was clear, and even a blind man could see that the group in black robes was the villain. They set up a mirror barrier and a magic forbidden area, ignoring the ordinary people in the hotel and carrying out an inhumane massacre. They also had a submachine gun in each hand. Wayne sneaked 10 meters away, crouched and charged, and suddenly accelerated his pace. The whistling sound of the wind reached the ears of the three black-robed men. Without thinking too much, they turned around and pulled the trigger. Swish! The afterimage passed by quickly, and Wayne crossed his hands in front of him. At the position of his arms, two long knives squirmed, turned into gray and white flesh, and turned back to the original shape of arms. Three heads soared into the sky, and the headless corpse did not fall down for a while, waving his hands and feet on the spot with the trigger pulled. The bullets were fired aimlessly, some hit the wall, and some shot through Wayne's chest and head. The white foam on his face squirmed, squeezing the bullet out of his body. It was just a fatal injury, not fatal at all. After killing three magicians of unknown strength in seconds, Wayne found that they were also under the suppression of the forbidden magic field. He called Mona forward and took away the submachine gun and replaced the magazine in front of the owner. His fist was big, and the owner dared not say a word when being robbed, and could only watch him change the magazine. "Do you know how to use it?" Wayne stuffed a submachine gun into Mona's hand, and when the latter nodded, he said, "Don't use it even if you know how to use it. Hold it for me. When I run out of bullets here, give me the gun." Wayne held the gun with both hands, a submachine gun in his left hand and a submachine gun in his right hand. He felt that there was nothing to be afraid of. He asked Mona to continue to move aside and came to the corner with two submachine guns. To his surprise, there was a loud gunshot behind him. The unlucky guy who was ambushed was furious, and his blood rushed to the ceiling. The 8 soldiers still didn't care and only knew to chase their prey. "Then I can only accept it with a smile." Wayne held the gun with both hands and pulled the trigger at the 8 backs. The flames spewed out rapidly. There was no need to aim in the narrow corridor. A slight shake of the muzzle would be a dense firepower network like raindrops. Chi. 8 soldiers were attacked from behind and staggered and fell one by one. Wayne emptied the magazine and threw away the submachine gun in his hand. He was about to comfort the victim and see what treasures the other party had, but suddenly realized that something was wrong. The smell was wrong. There was no smell of blood. Under Wayne's surprised gaze, the 8 soldiers slowly got up from the ground. Their hands and feet were stiff, their eyes were dull, and they looked like zombies that could not die. But they are more advanced than zombies and can't die even if they are shot in the head. Wayne saw the white foam on the neck of one of the soldiers wriggling, and the wounds broken by bullets healed themselves, and he couldn't help but take a breath. Too weird. He is always double standard. He can be weird, but others can never be weird. Besides, there were 8 of them at once. The 8 soldiers stood up and stood still as if waiting for orders. They did not fire directly at Wayne. Seeing this, the latter raised his eyebrows and said, "Listen to my orders, all commit suicide." The effect was outstanding. The soldiers looked at him one after another and pulled the trigger without thinking. The order was wrong: kill. Wayne shrugged and stood there, letting the bullet pierce his body with an innocent look. Realizing that this monster could not be killed with hot weapons, the 8 soldiers decisively abandoned their guns, pulled out the military daggers at their waists, and formed a siege formation in pairs. Boom! The afterimage flashed by, and a soldier's chest was sunken, and he smashed to the end of the corridor like a cannonball. The person was in mid-air, and a lot of white foam overflowed from his mouth, nose, ears, and eyes. Wayne clearly heard the sound of fractures. He had a spine but soft body, and defined the 8 soldiers as magical life. He had seen similar life and created it. In terms of appearance alone, The 8 highly anthropomorphic ones in front of him did not have the uncanny valley effect. Wayne kicked the nearest soldier away. His speed, strength, and other attributes were absolutely overwhelming. He was so thick-skinned that he ignored the sharp weapons and rushed into the formation. He punched and a ball of white foam splashed, and he easily beat the 8 soldiers into a state of disfigurement. The white foam squirmed, and the 8 soldiers stood up at the same time. Their muscles swelled, their bodies rose to 2 meters, a tail grew from their backs, fine scales covered their bodies, and their hands turned into claws. Wayne was horrified. He had seen this scene before, such as Dragon Heart Island and Landau Manor. Wholesale. Dragon Blood. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Restarting the Myth. Author, Fengchao Huang. Chapter 169. How could such a precious treasure as dragon blood be mass-produced? Wayne said it was unbelievable. He remembered clearly who it was. The devil from hell had painstakingly planned to make a big fuss on Dragon Heart Island in order to have a strong body when he came. If he hadn't been so unlucky and snatched the faith from the ancient god, maybe it would have happened. How come the dragon's blood, which the devil is so concerned about, is so bad on the streets? Have you ever respected the devil's opinion? Even if the devil agreed, he, Wayne, would not agree. As the heir of the Dragon Knight of the Landau family, he hoped that the dragon blood would be a global limited edition, and the less the better. Ho 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 ho. The 8 dragon blood soldiers completed their transformation, raised their arms and roared in pain, their muscles bulging like hard rocks, and their sharp claws shone with cold light, as if they could easily tear apart steel. The restless long tail swept back and forth, the wind roared and was extremely powerful. A pair of ferocious eyes were locked on Wayne, and the mutated crocodile-like bloody mouth opened, hot air overflowed, and drool kept dripping. Maybe it's crocodile blood. Wayne complained, taking a personal stance and refusing to admit that the 8 soldiers were wholesale creations of dragon blood. Master, do you want to help? After hearing Mona's team voice, Wayne refused. He wanted to personally suppress the value of the dragon's blood creation and ensure the gold content of Veronica. It's such a loss if a limited edition luxury car depreciates before even mentioning it. In addition, Wayne squinted his eyes. It was scary to think about the power of being able to wholesale dragon blood creations. The water was too deep and he was worried that he would not be able to control it. You were careless and shouldn't have stood out early. .ttk and .co. While Wayne was annoyed that he was too impulsive, he flirted with the dragon-blooded soldier and blamed the other party for what he had done. If given another chance, he would still choose to be hot-blooded. Boom. Wayne rushed out with vigorous steps, crushing the carpet under his feet, and cut through the airwaves with his fist, heading straight for the dragon-blooded soldiers at the front. The soldier's thinking was rigid and he didn't know why to dodge, so he instinctively punched to meet him. 2 fists, one big and one small, collided, and the mist-like air mass burst open with a loud bang. White droplets splashed everywhere, and the fists of the dragon blood soldiers decomposed in response. Each metacarpal bone was scattered along with the white flesh, and the whole arm was shaking violently. The dragon-blooded soldier roared and backed away, his eyes fierce, as if there was no concept of pain. Wayne landed a punch, calmed down a bit, kept his feet on the ground, and swung his fist with more ferocity. In the corridor, the sound of tearing cloth continued to explode, roaring and the sound of broken bones. From time to time, a white figure would smash into the wall or ceiling. Wayne held down the chest of a dragon-blooded soldier and pressed him against the wall. When he saw the opponent coming at him with his claws, he raised his hand and grabbed the opponent's wrist. The 5 fingers tightened, sinking into the white flesh, and clasping the thick wrist joints. Hiss. The sharp-clawed wrist and an arm bone were violently torn out. Half of the dragon-blooded soldier's arm hung limply, unable to feel the pain, and he opened his bloody mouth and roared with a deafening sound. "It's noisy." Wayne's eyes flashed fiercely, and he inserted his arm bone into the crocodile's mouth as a sharp weapon. He exerted force, and the sharp weapon penetrated the mouth and stabbed out from the back of the dragon-blooded soldier's neck. "The nutrition is good, and my bones have increased." He whipped his legs sideways and hit the dragon-blood soldier's waist and abdomen hard. With the sound of muscles and bones exploding, the white cannonball suddenly flew away and hit the wall at the end of the corridor. "Philomena. Good news, the golden mage on the 5th floor is here. Bad news, it's too late." Her body was transformed by the flesh and blood of the starry sky beast. The process is irreversible. Not only her body, but her mind has also been eroded. Looking at the twitching and squirming dragon blood soldiers at her feet, Philomena exclaimed that she was unlucky. If she had persisted a little longer, she would not have to fuse with the flesh and blood of the starry sky beast. Philomena was in extremely poor condition. The muscles in her right arm swelled, and her 5 fingers turned into octopus tentacles, hanging down by her feet, bending and squirming as if she had a will of her own. The mutated arms broke through the coat and half of the bathrobe. Under the snow-white skin, black meridians squirmed, muscles bulged, and the flesh and blood of the starry sky beast spread along the blood vessels in the body. The originally plump and tall breasts looked particularly terrifying now. Black meridians extend upward along the shoulders, arms, and neck. Half of the face is swollen, one eye cannot be opened, and mucus leaks from the slippery epidermis. Without a mirror, Philomena couldn't see her current appearance. She could only see her mutated arm, and her guess would be disgusting. "It would be nice if you showed up earlier," Philomena said in annoyance. Her ugly appearance made her shameless in public. If she scared the golden mage and was labeled as degenerate, it would be easier to stab her to death with a knife. At least it's not that embarrassing. In annoyance, the dragon-blooded soldier not far away stood up again. He pulled out the arm bone from his mouth and inserted it into the broken arm. The foam squirmed and the seriously injured body slowly healed. Flesh and bones are not one. Philomena keenly captured this scene, and a bold idea came to her mind. Maybe these brainless soldiers could help her get rid of her current ugly state. She divided the contaminated thoughts and forcibly suppressed the mutated flesh and blood body. Where there is suppression, there must be resistance. She knows that she cannot hold on for long. Once her mind is exhausted, she will completely mutate into an octopus monster, with no possibility of turning back. Moreover, the changed part is irreversible, and it is better to block it than to remove it. A vent must be found. Give it a try. If you lose, commit suicide and end your life as a human being. Philomena gritted her teeth and waved the 5 tentacles on her right arm to roll towards the dragon-blooded soldier. The unlucky guy had just healed himself, and he was rolled up in the air by the tentacles before he took 2 steps. The flesh and blood of the star beast seemed to have discovered a new world, and rushed over with drums and gongs. It didn't matter where it expanded. Philomena took the opportunity to suppress it with her mind and expelled the mutated flesh and blood from her body. Her beautiful face returned to normal, and she finally had the face to see people. Her neck, chest, and right arm still looked like a mutant octopus. She tried to continue to expel it with her mind, but the flesh and blood of the star beast had already completed the erosion process of the dragon-blooded soldier, and in turn continued to erode her body. Philomena didn't think much about it and smashed the dragon-blooded soldier in her hand. The dragon-blooded soldier has a complex composition. The main materials are soldiers, diluted dragon blood, and the flesh and blood of the forgotten. The refining array is linked together, and each process is extremely precise. The Ministry of Magic has summarized the laws after years of experiments to create biological weapons. Although it is a magical creation, it is absolutely scientific. On the surface, the dragon blood soldier is simple, rough, and brainless, and is a stitched monster made of different elements. In fact, it is very complicated inside and outside. Because of the complexity, it is precise, and because of the precision, it is easy to be damaged by external impact. The dragon blood soldier was eroded by the flesh and blood of the star beast, and the flesh and blood of the Forgotten suffered a higher level of attack, and collapsed on the spot, and the white flesh flowed and fell like mud, revealing the white skeleton supporting the body. This time, the dragon blood soldier did not heal itself. Boom! The skeleton fell to the ground, broke into pieces, and the white skull rolled far away, and happened to come to Wayne's feet. He subconsciously stepped out and stepped on it with a crisp sound. Huh! Died. Wayne raised his eyebrows and punched the sneak-attacking dragon blood soldier away. Checking the quality, after the transformation, it was not as strong as Veronica's normal strength. The strength attribute is okay, which is just average stuff for him. It can be regarded as a dimensionality reduction attack on the silver mage of the same realm. With the forbidden magic field, the strong combination is a sure kill. Considering that they are proficient in using firearms and have received professional training, each of them is a powerful soldier selected from 100 miles away. When they are deployed on the battlefield of a big country, they are an invincible ace force. Wayne analyzed the strength of the dragon blood soldiers. Immortality is the highlight, but if there is no forbidden magic field, the combination of earth, fire, water, and wind can kill them completely. He sorted out his thoughts and was about to take action, but a dragon blood soldier turned into a skeleton, deader than dead. He looked at the end of the corridor curiously, wanting to see who was so fierce. When he saw it, his eyes suddenly turned black. Tentacle monster. Oh my God, it's too weird. Philomena paused and smiled sweetly at Wayne, a very far-fetched smile, quite ashamed. Wayne then recognized that the person opposite was the veiled elder sister who had amazed him. However, what was going on with the tentacles, and that hard half of her chest, it felt like it could kill someone. Ning was also a man-made person, with all the technology and hard work on her body. For a while, the elder sister's charm value dropped infinitely, and she was kicked out of the daily refreshed first love queue. Mona got a place as a substitute. Philomena held a sword in one hand, and in the other, 5 octopus tentacles entangled the dragon blood soldiers, suppressing their thoughts and expelling the mutated flesh and blood in their bodies. Wayne glanced at the gradually elastic half of her chest, and roughly understood something, and very readily helped the other party to play auxiliary. And that sword, it looked familiar. She was well maintained, and she had become an old aunt in the other world. Wayne's figure flashed, and at the moment when he attracted the siege of the dragon blood soldiers, he kicked the other party in the crotch. The kick was so powerful that the whole leg was directly submerged in the white foam. Regardless of whether the dragon blood soldier said that or not, he entered a stagnant state due to the short stiffness. Wayne jumped up on the opponent's knee and hit the crocodile's chin with his knee. When the dragon blood soldier was in the air, his fist burst into a spiral air wave, hitting the chest and abdomen, and hit it far away to Philomena's position. Philomena had just eroded a dragon blood soldier, and faced with the gift from Wayne, she smiled and accepted it. The changes in the front and back of the chest, including the neck, were alleviated, and the skin returned to delicate, leaving only the arm in the octopus state. The right hand directly touched the flesh and blood of the star beast, which was the most severely mutated area. It was also because Philomena was too cruel to herself, and it had a bit of the intention of dying together, otherwise the change would not be so thorough. There were fewer and fewer dragon blood soldiers, and Philomena's body gradually returned to normal. When Wayne sent the last dragon blood soldier, only the palm of her right arm was still a tentacle, and the rest had been restored. Philomena leaned against the wall and fell down, her face pale and her breathing short, which was a sign that her mind was about to be exhausted. Illness comes like a mountain falling, and illness goes like a thread. Rejecting the pollution of the starry sky was much more difficult than she expected. She was seriously ill and knew that she was dying. Compared with her struggling mind, Philomena was more concerned about other things. She looked at her tentacles with worry. The dragon blood soldiers were exhausted, and the flesh and blood of the starry sky beast could not find an outlet, and returned to erode her body. The counterattack momentum of the starry sky beast's flesh and blood intensified. If this trend continued, her mind would not last long and would soon become ugly again. Seeing Wayne walking towards her, she let go of the sword in her hand and blocked it in front of her chest, and nodded politely, "Thank you very much for your help. I am Philomena from the Moonlight Church." "So you are a mage from the Moonlight Church? It's an honor to meet you. I'm Jack, a local passing by." Wayne crouched in front of Philomena, trying to pull her up. Philomena looked at her left hand covering her chest, then at the octopus tentacles on her right arm, and gave Wayne an unceremonious roll of her eyes. "Do you want an octopus? If not, forget it." She did not reach out and looked at the white shirt on Wayne's body. There were bullet holes but no blood stains, guessing how he ignored the bullets. If you can use magic, there are many ways to ignore bullets, which is not surprising, but this is a forbidden magic realm, and ignoring bullets can only be related to your own body. This golden mage is very powerful. When Wayne saw the other party staring at his clothes, he withdrew his hand with a look of realization, took off his shirt and handed it over. "Ms. Philomena, if you don't mind, please wear my clothes first. You are such a gentleman." Philomena took the shirt and put it on her body to hide her embarrassment. Mona stepped forward and looked at Philomena slightly displeased. "She hasn't even covered that shirt yet." When Philomena saw the knife and gun in Mona's hand, her expression suddenly became strange. Her weapon meant that she should be killed. "No, weapons will not be left behind if you are killed, only if you are robbed." Philomena just pretended not to notice that Jack had helped her get out of the predicament. It was reasonable to say thank you, and there was no need to mention the minor flaws. Moreover, she still has someone to ask for. It is a good thing that the other person likes to collect magic props. "Mr. Jack, you are the Golden Mage of Heavenly Father's Holy See, right?" Philomena saw the white combat uniform on Mona's body and was sure that she would not be wrong. She spoke quickly, "My companions and I were ambushed by hostile forces. 5 of our companions are being hunted down. Lozelle the fort is the territory of Heavenly Father's Holy See. I hope you can save my companions." As she spoke, her breathing became heavier, and her right arm, which was not covered by her shirt, suddenly swelled. Wayne frowned. "Ma'am, your injury is more serious, doesn't it matter?" Philomena shook her head, held the long sword on the ground, and slowly handed it to Wayne. "Bring this sword with you, my companion will obey your orders. In addition, my companion also has a black sword in his hand. I hope you keep the suitcase properly and don't let it be snatched away by the enemy. I just like a cheerful person like you." Wayne raised his eyebrows and wanted to say that he could still be saved and that he had to believe in medical miracles. His hands were faster than his mouth, catching the single-edged sword first. He decisively changed his words. "Don't worry, who doesn't know that I, Jack, am true to my word? After accepting your money, I will definitely put my enemies in order. Even if there is no money, this is the territory of the Heavenly Father's Holy See. As a member of the Holy See, we will not let them do evil." Philomena smiled with relief, slowly closed her eyes and said, "Please don't bring my companions here. I don't want them to see me ugly. If you don't mind, I hope you can let me die with human dignity." "No problem, you have the final say on how you spend the money." Wayne readily agreed, glanced at Mona, and quickly brought the suitcase and the enemy's head over. When he turned back, Philomena's right arm turned into an octopus tentacle, which was sticky and wrapped around his neck. Mona left step by step. Wayne saw it very funny, secretly said something interesting, tore off the octopus tentacles around his neck, and patted Philomena on the shoulder. "Madam, relax your mind and remember your human appearance. Your condition is not serious. It's not too late for treatment." Philomena opened her eyes in a daze, and her eyes were completely white. She saw nothing but the coldness on her body, as if something was being taken away. "Maybe it's the vitality." She thought of something else and said intermittently, "Masks, they can leave after wearing the masks. Don't come close to me, they will be contaminated." She is a good woman. If we are destined in the future, we can sit down and have an in-depth communication. The patient sent information and read envelopes with all the courtesy, and the attending physician Wayne decisively began to operate. Vertical lines split open on his back, and 4 tentacles stretched out, entangled Philomena's octopus tentacles, and introduced the mutated corrosive energy into his body. It is not difficult to remove the diseased area. In a sense, Philomena's mutation is also an evolution, which she cannot bear. Wayne tried evolution when he was on Dragonheart Island. He wanted to transform into a dragon-blooded boy by taking dragon blood, but the Book of Greed failed to take notice, and the evolution ended in failure. Book of Greed, you don't even look at your identity. What is the level of dragon blood? Are you worthy of it? It was the same this time. The Book of Greed looked down upon the flesh and blood of the starry sky beast and refused to be assimilated by it. These powers were driven out of Wayne's body and turned into pieces of flesh that fell to the ground. At first, the operation went very smoothly and the sterilization and disinfection progressed rapidly. Afterwards, a stalemate ensued. The flesh and blood of the starry sky beast had a strong desire for survival. It realized that it could not afford to offend the opponent, and began to play hide and seek with Wayne in Philomena's body. One chases, the other runs, and when he catches him, he howls. Wayne didn't have time to wear it out. Vertical lines split on his chest, and Philomena's big eyes enveloped her. As his thoughts diverged, an indescribable murmur penetrated into the depths of Philomena's soul, babbling, blah blah, and whispering in a head-shaking manner. Philomena frowned in pain, her mind floated, she saw the starry sky and the universe, and felt that she gradually understood everything. "Ma'am, don't think too much. Remember what you looked like as a human." Restarting the Myth. Author, Fengchao Huang. Chapter 170. 5 minutes later, Wayne retracted his tentacles and lifted up his white shirt to cover Philomena's clean white right arm. The doctor wiped the non-existent sweat from his forehead. The operation was perfect. The patient was out of danger and could be discharged after recuperating. "Boss, I brought the things back." Mona returned with a suitcase and handed the mask to Wayne. "The mask seems a little strange." "It may be the key to leave. I brought it with me." "Where's the head?" "It's turned to ash." "Well done, let's go." In case there is an ambush on the other side, Wayne got up and was about to leave. Looking at the unconscious Philomena, he tied her up in a white shirt and carried her directly on his shoulders. Just in case, it's safer to take her out, just in case there are perverts. Mona was very unhappy when she saw her special seat being robbed. She knew that Wayne was kind and would definitely lend a hand to the weak. But why must it be carried on the shoulder? Princess hug. It's even more impossible. It's much easier to hold it under your arm, and you don't need that little bit of strength. When Wayne was holding the mask and walking through the corridor, he saw 3 headless corpses. He asked Mona to pick up the 3 masks, and then burn them all. The enemy was very powerful and was a mortal enemy of the Moonlight Church. He didn't care who it was. He didn't believe that the other party could catch up with London if he erased the traces of his own actions. It was so funny. "If you have the ability, come here." With the help of the mask, the 2 came to the window of the guest room at the end of the corridor. Wayne waved his hand and finally saw the starry sky at night. He turned over and jumped directly to the top floor, emitting thoughts to perceive the magic fluctuations around him. Found it? Wayne saw the core of the barrier set up by the enemy, patted his butt, jumped down from the 5th floor with Mona, and quickly came to the grove behind the hotel. He memorized the shapes of the 2 magic circles, and when his 5 fingers touched the crystal ball, he was about to extract the 4 elements. He didn't do it. The hotel building was dilapidated. Once the 4 elements were swept away, the mirror space disappeared, and the building was very likely to collapse in an instant. He was just in a hurry to deal with the enemy and had no time to save people. There were other guests in the hotel room. Once the building collapsed, these people would surely die. He put Philomena on the lawn, collected the props for setting up the forbidden magic field, and destroyed the forbidden magic field first to ensure that Philomena's teammates could use magic. A huge thought enveloped the hotel, and the 4 elements drawn from the crystal ball were divided into 2, and the earth element was taken out alone. The moment the mirror space dissipated, these earth elements were used by Wayne to release magic, and earth walls were erected one after another, acting as load-bearing walls to stabilize the crumbling hotel building. In the subsequent aftermath work, Wayne said that he could not help, he tried his best, and the city government would worry about it next. It's a pity for this hotel. It can't be repaired and can only be demolished. I'm afraid the boss will cry when he gets up tomorrow. Half an hour later, police cars surrounded the hotel and began rescue work. Wayne watched from a distance until 12 o'clock in the morning, when the drunk Nicholas and his team members took a car back to the hotel gate. When Nicholas heard about the earthquake and the casualties, he was so scared that he was covered in cold sweat. He woke up on the spot and shouted to rush into the ruins to rescue his boss. This was not his boss, but his life and future. "Stop howling, I'm not dead yet." Wayne walked out from behind the bushes and was very satisfied with Nicholas' performance. He asked him to contact a new hotel and arrange a special flight route as soon as possible. "It is not advisable to stay here for a long time, so leave quickly." Nicholas experienced ups and downs in one day, his expression management was out of control, and he cried and laughed while following Wayne's orders. Wayne took a pen and paper from a team member, wrote a few lines, returned to the grove, and stuffed the note into Philomena's collar. "Madam, I have done my duty and saved your companion at the last moment. The enemy is too strong and there are ambushes around. I only had time to save people and failed to protect the suitcase. The enemy reinforcements took it away and its whereabouts are unknown. I used the secret method of the Holy See to cure your illness. No need to thank me. The sword is the consultation fee. Your charm is amazing. See you again. If we are lucky, Jack will stay." After finishing all this, Wayne waved and took Mona away. Before leaving, he pinched Philomena's face hard. The hand was very heavy. The intense pain woke Philomena from exhaustion. In a daze, she saw Wayne's back carrying the suitcase away. She suppressed the pain of mental exhaustion, stood up with the help of the tree trunk, took off the note on her collar, and after reading it, she couldn't help but twitching at the corner of her eyes. If the suitcase was taken away by the enemy, what did she just see? This is too perfunctory. You should have the minimum respect when you lie to someone, and be careful. When she was unconscious. "Oh, he's a good man. Very gentlemanly, I feel warm." She untied the shirt tied to her body and put it on. The moonlight on her fingertips was hazy, brushing across her face, and dispelling the high swelling on her cheeks. Philomena's face was gloomy. Although the man was good, now was not the time to think about these things. The Ministry of Magic and the Moonlight Church will not swallow this evil breath. You must pay the price. Ambush, attack, leaving no room for others, killing people and robbing boxes. This matter is not over. On the other side, Nicholas contacted a hotel near the airport. He received a call from the senior management of Albert Steel Company. The other party was very concerned about the safety of their group. After confirming that there were no casualties, they apologized repeatedly. If the hospitality is not good, I will definitely give an explanation. When the enemy is weak, we are strong. Nicholas took the opportunity to discuss cooperation matters. On the basis of the original quotation, he sought certain benefits for the Landau Consortium. New hotel. Nicholas arranged the best room for the boss. He was very smart. The secretary still slept in a suite with the boss. The new hotel booked temporarily did not have a presidential suite. The luxury suite was limited in specifications and had only one bedroom. Nicholas thought it was not a big problem. Anyway, the boss and the secretary slept in the same bed, and no matter how many bedrooms there were, they would not be used. In the luxury suite, Wayne sat on the sofa wearing a coat, and filled the table with the harvest this time, and studied them in different categories. Everyone's luggage was still waiting to be excavated in the ruins. It was hard to say whether it could be excavated. His and Mona's luggage must have been completely destroyed. Wherever the Death Knight passed, no grass grew. He would not let go of a pair of underwear or a piece of toilet paper. Wayne was too lazy to worry about it. Nicholas would send new clothes to him for his belongings. He rubbed his hands and fiddled with the harvest in front of him. It was the settlement link that everyone liked to see again. He. Mona walked out of the bathroom wrapped in a bath towel, not covering much below, and not intending to cover the top at all. When she heard the boss's hearty laughter, she came to him quietly and sat next to him on the sofa. "Boss, what are you looking at? I should say this, what are you doing, why don't you wear clothes?" Wayne looked down and saw the oppressive cross pendant that was about to come out, and the poor cross pendant sank again. "The suitcase is ruined, and I have no clothes to change." Mona took it for granted. There was reason and evidence, and Wayne could not refute it. His mind flashed, and he controlled the cross necklace to change Mona into a conservative plaid pajamas. Mona looked disappointed. She thought that there would be a big battle tonight, and the master was excited. She took the initiative and became excited. "It's not that easy to eat people, go to the line with the whip." Wayne waved his hand to let Mona move aside, and waited for Veronica to finish eating the meat, Willie to finish licking the rice, and Chris to finish cleaning the table before coming over to drink soup. Mona's affection came inexplicably, and the self-attack strategy she had imagined throughout the process was 99% worship due to faith. From Wayne's perspective, he had no love for Mona, but he did have a good impression of her, but that was because of the contract. The black silk glasses female secretary was obedient and would not betray him, and he liked this model very much. Unbuttoning the belt at this time was too scumbag, which was equivalent to a priest exorcising a little boy. He would nurture it first, and if he really developed feelings, he would promise not to take the initiative or refuse, and let the other party toss. "Boss, what are these?" Mona hugged Wayne's arm, her face full of ignorance. Tonight's experience made her feel more crisis. She lost her exclusive title and special seat. If she didn't seize the opportunity to be alone, she would be dispensable in the future. Following her own warning, she didn't want to lose these. Wayne pulled his hand away but failed to pull it out. Seeing Mona's insistence, he had to reward her. "It's a good thing, but it's too targeted and seems to be useless to me," Wayne said disappointedly, and the corners of his mouth couldn't help but curl up. LaFilo's spear and sword disappeared with the mirror space. To be more precise, it disappeared when it was taken out of the building. Philomena's single-edged sword is still there, of excellent quality, and it can be used with a new vest. It's a pity that the magic gun was not found. I don't know where Philomena hid it. Then there are the magic props for setting up the forbidden magic field and the mirror space projection barrier. The two barriers are amazingly powerful. After completion, they caused considerable damage to the magic props. Wayne doesn't have a rich family background and dares not mess around like the other party. The good news is that he remembered the magic circle graphics and arrangement methods, and he can arrange it himself after gathering the casting materials. Let's not talk about the mirror space. The forbidden magic field is definitely a good thing. It is very suitable for a magician with a strong life physique like him. He can kill a group of gold mages with his fists and feet. After talking about the side quest income, Wayne looked at the main quest settlement again. Dragon blood. Good stuff. Use it secretly on Veronica, and you can see her burning in the fire again. Fire element ring. Pure passerby, to be honest, this wave is a rush from both sides, and it is destined to belong to him. Moon Shadow White Book. Absolutely good stuff. According to the different phases of the moon, it is divided into 4 parts: dark moon, waning moon, new moon, and full moon. It covers a lot of magic and knowledge of the Moonlight Church. It is a perfect textbook, enough for Wayne to complete the 2 courses of silver and gold. Silver is college, and gold is not a graduate student. Thinking that Chris is a graduate student, Wayne is thinking about going back to graduate school with the graduate students. In Wayne's view, the Moon Shadow White Book is the biggest gain of the main quest, but he still can't understand the last item. This is a sheepskin manuscript. The workmanship is very rough, written with human blood as paint, recording the magic knowledge with chaotic word order that is incomprehensible. The strange patterns made Wayne even more confused. He felt that he could understand it, but he couldn't translate it. If he had to say it. There is a lot of wrong knowledge in this book. It is unlikely that there is a defective product among a group of treasures. Wayne thinks that he has made a mistake, and his vision is not enough to judge the right or wrong of this book. With an attitude of humble learning, Wayne looked through the sheepskin manuscript again, reading it word by word, but shook his head after a while. It's not that he is nitpicking. Putting aside his vision, there are too many grammatical errors in the crazy words, contradictions, and confusion that makes no sense logically. Master, Master. Mona's weak voice came to his ears, and Wayne turned his head and saw her pale and bloodless face. Her teeth were trembling, and she didn't look like a traitor. He hurriedly threw down the parchment manuscript and asked Mona what happened. That book. Mona closed her eyes and lowered her head, not daring to look at the parchment manuscript. It has some kind of magic, which makes me subconsciously want to finish it. My thinking is affected by it, and it is very difficult to read. I feel that my soul is disassembled and reorganized, and my body is about to split. It's okay, just hug it. Wayne held Mona in his arms, and his palm touched his pajamas, which was full of sweat. He looked at the parchment manuscript in surprise. Strange, how can I be fine after reading it? The Book of Greed.jpg. Wayne suddenly realized that he had been contaminated several times. When he opened his eyes, he was a source of radioactive contamination. The parchment manuscript could affect Mona, but not him. Boss, you are an angel and will not be affected by evil thoughts. Mona lay in Wayne's arms and squinted her eyes to give the answer. Her mind was affected by the sheepskin manuscript, and she was mentally exhausted. She hugged Wayne and arched her back in his arms, then found a comfortable position and fell asleep directly. Completely defenseless. Wayne touched Mona's forehead, and his tentacles rolled over to confirm that there was nothing abnormal. He picked up the sheepskin manuscript, suppressed the desire to lift the bar and read it again. After flipping through the whole book, he found that the blood handwriting was different, and the manuscript was jointly created by more than a dozen authors. It is not ruled out that the people of the Moonlight Church collected the sheepskin manuscripts and rebound them. Wayne leaned on the sofa, put one hand on Mona's shoulder, frowned and thought about the origin of the sheepskin manuscript. He saw the author's description of the starry sky between the lines. The appearance of the starry sky was written with words of admiration and shock. This is wrong, the starry sky is not so gorgeous. These authors are probably crazy. Wayne really wanted to find Philomena to ask clearly, taking so many treasures out, each with a different purpose, without any rules, Is he preparing to make a deal with a certain force? If so, what is the other party's trading item? Thinking that there was another group of unlucky people who were ambushed, and he was not there and could not help, Wayne slapped his thigh in anger. Sorry, you go back to sleep. Wayne picked up the fire element ring, which was a magic ring for casting spells. The internal fire element reserve was amazing, and it could also be regarded as an energy storage vehicle. With his affinity for fire elements, casting spells through the magic ring would only slow down the speed of the fire element fellow villagers' surrender. He decisively turned on the meditation mode and drew the stored fire elements into his body. Why is there only one fire element ring, and there are 3 more? Did Philomena take kickbacks? While Wayne met with the fire element, he complained that his aunt had a big appetite and all the benefits were taken away by the other party. November 3rd. The day after the Capitol Hotel encountered a local earthquake, the Lucerberg authorities arranged a special flight route back to London at the strong request of Nicholas. Wayne and Mona left by plane, while Nicholas and his team members remained in Luzul City. This was a good opportunity, and the latter wanted to gain more benefits for the group. At noon, housekeeper FLA met the plane, and the black car arrived at Wayne's house. Without the 3 invincible female college students at home, Mona felt that she was doing well again. She was annoyed that she slept too deeply last night and did not seize the opportunity. Now the weather was just right, maybe she could cheat once. Ding-ling-ling. The phone in the living room rang, and Wayne picked up the phone, and Austin's voice came. I heard that you encountered an earthquake in Luzul City and the whole hotel was destroyed. That's true, but don't worry, I'm lucky and I'm not injured. I'm not worried about you. Social trash like you has a heavy responsibility and will not die if you don't complete your mission to harm society. Austin didn't give him any face at all. He told the truth as soon as he opened his mouth and said, the dragon blood is in your hand, right? No way, you know this too. Wayne was speechless. Old Den was like a cheater who knew everything. As far as he knew, the last intelligence network covering the chosen continent was called Heavenly Father. Austin said solemnly on the other side of the phone, I know there are reasons I know. You are in big trouble now and are being targeted by the Ministry of Magic. In addition to the dragon blood, bring everything else here. I'll wait for you at home.